Jet motion they go with here with Baldwin. And Baldwin breaks free. And the Bears sick 'em. Monterey Baldwin.
Welcome to Sick 'em 365 Radio.
Option look, Sanders keeps it, makes a cut, first down, still running. Spencer Sanders all the way to the house. A crucial touchdown for Oklahoma State to fight back 37 yards.
Sick 'em 365 Radio is presented by IdealMRI.com. High-quality MRIs for $497 or less. IdealMRI.com. Your health is important, so is your budget.
Flagler for three. Yes.
The 3 o'clock hour is sponsored by Waco Custom Marketplace. Meats, sweets, Texas treats, and a cut above the rest. 425 Lake Air Drive, Waco.
Here Pollard. Oh, to Pollard. Turn it on. Carlson. He gets past him. Look at Pollard taking it for the touchdown.
Now here's David Smoak, Paul Catalina, and Craig Smoak.
Man, I'll tell you what, there are certain parts around the country that you have, and even Texas at times, although every day now it's just brutally hot and a little bit cooler in the mornings right now, but just wait and the weather will change. Same thing with college football. The landscape of college football is just constantly, and the word turmoil means negative at times. It's a roller coaster, the ups and downs. And today, the mother of the response or the report by John Wilner from the Mercury News that USC and UCLA are in talks, and it's just a matter of time before they join the Big Ten, which again sets off all sorts of speculation and rumors and thoughts and, oh my God, what does this mean? But you know what? That's why we're here. And that's why we love you're here with us as the chat room is already going crazy. Paul, Craig Smoak, David Smoak, Paul Catalina, all full throttle behind the scenes today with Levi, Jack, Emery, and Garrett. And just wait a day, right? Or wait till tomorrow. Who knows what it brings? But UCLA and Southern Cal trying to bring the city of LA, even if it's a pro sports town, to the Big Ten.
There are so many scenarios with this, and the Pac-12 had better hope that this move to the Big Ten or a reported move to the Big Ten is just a power play to get tiered revenue in their new TV deal, because like Texas used to have, like USC and UCLA used to have in their old TV deals before everybody kind of went to the everybody gets the same money model. The Pac-12 was structured a lot like the Big 12 used to be, where the Big 12 used to give Texas and A&M and Oklahoma more money, and the other schools kind of split all the same. The Pac-12 was tiered that way as well. The best case scenario for the Pac-12 is that that's what USC and UCLA are doing. Worst case scenario is that they're going to the Big Ten and giving the Big Ten the Los Angeles market and two brand name schools and shaking up the college football world again.
There's like 1,000 things that spawn off of this. I mean, like a 1,000 things. What happens with the Pac-12? We can just talk about the Pac-12 for an hour. And, the fact that they were feeling pretty good. George Kliavkoff, everything's going okay. New commissioner, starting to settle down a little bit. And, even John Wilner, who's a part of this story, asked him a couple weeks ago about, there's always those rumors out there about the Big 12 going after like the Arizona schools or, someone along those lines. Oregon and Washington, the rumors about them in the Big 10 that we talked about on this show months and months and months ago, actually about this time last year probably, certainly right after the Oklahoma and Texas announcement. And, as of a month ago when we talked to him, not even a month ago, that's none of that. And then, boom, shockwave today. I mean, all across college football with him reporting that and others reporting that as well. I mean, just in the last, 10 minutes of me sitting here and looking at the Twitter world, let's see here. The alliance is pretty much dead.
Oh, yeah.
The alliance is just, what was the point of that entire thing?
Slow things down, right?
To rope-a-dope the Pac-12 so the partner in the alliance can come swing and grab their best teams. You've got John Wilner saying, don't assume the Big Ten is done. And, my first question was, all right, great to be in the Big 12 right now because you are all of a sudden in a much stronger position, you would think, than you were earlier this morning before this was public, because you are a conference that is looking to get stronger. And what could possibly make you stronger when everybody's like, what's the next move? What's the next? Add UTSA, add San Diego State, add UNLV. How about we wait and see how everything shakes out, and maybe we add Arizona and Arizona State. Maybe we add Oregon and Washington. But if the Big Ten's not done, that's another conversation. So, I mean, like I said, there's 1,000 things that branch off of this. This will have massive ramifications. And another tweet I'll pass along was out there about the amount of money that USC and UCLA could be making, over $100 million if they join the Big Ten. Announcement, according to some, and I can't give credit for every little note because it's just a flurry of stuff, but maybe as soon as tonight, according to some reporters, that it would be official. So not done. Official announcement maybe as soon as tonight. The two LA schools joining the Big Ten could make as much as $100 million. I mean, what does the SEC do? Do they keep growing and adding? Does this mean they go swoop and grab Florida State and Clemson? I mean, it's amazing. It's amazing, and it's kind of sad in a way because this is a totally new college football that any of us grew up with. I mean, this is throwing all the tradition to the wayside, basically, in so many ways.
Nothing is sacred.
No, nothing's really sacred. But as we see with A&M and Texas, like, they can all come back around again if the situation's right. But just massive news, and obviously not official just yet, but it looks like it's heading that way. And once it is, then, oh boy, this is going to be a really fun show.
Paul and Craig Smoak, David Smoak, we love you. We appreciate every one of you. And I know that there's going to be all sorts of, I heard this. But kind of be careful with that because we try to be careful with that. We will report if it's from someone that we trust. And then, yes, there's going to be some innuendos or speculation as well. But it's interesting. About a year ago, 11 months ago, it was the Big 12 is dead. And it is, well, this is going to the Big 10, or so-and-so is going to the Pac-12, or so-and-so's now the Big 12, the Pac-12, here's a year later, they're the ones that are like, what the hell's going on? I would think that if the Big Ten was to add anybody else, in my opinion, not from calling anybody at those schools that I'm about to mention, but in my opinion, I reached out to a couple of media guys that cover a lot of these schools in both the Big Ten and Pac-12. Would you guys think if they were to add 2 more, and they may add 4, the SEC might do it, Paul, Craig, you said, Washington and Oregon, to me, next team up.
No brainer. And here you go, Brett McMurphy. And I'm not going to sit here and read off Twitter all day. Because we all can do that in our time.
As well, yeah.
But Brett McMurphy, just a moment ago, USC and UCLA moved to Big Ten, should be completed by Friday, and Big Ten may not stop at 16. Sources tell Action Network headquarters. So again, that would lead me to believe at least that Oregon and Washington would make sense because LA is on an island by themselves in this new Big Ten. But could be done by Friday, wouldn't be done there. The second part of his tweet here. Big 12 may get aggressive. Looked at Arizona, Arizona State, Colorado, and Utah. We're headed to super conferences, source said. So if you are just joining the party, this is something we've been talking about for over a year now. Even with all of the especially with all the Big 12 stuff that broke about a year ago, that's when we really started to delve into this. Then obviously the Big 12 had to reorganize, and it's turned into what it's turned into. And we've been talking about all these different parts of this for months and months. And, just when it looked like it was all dying and it was starting to slow down and settle down and everybody's going to go to their corners and just play it out, massive news today.
And look, if for the super conference theory to work, it means that one conference has to die, right?
Because there's 65 what you call the Power 5, the A5 teams, including Notre Dame.
Yeah. So for that to work,
you're not going to boot some teams out. I mean, that's the thing. How much do you restrict it down to where, how low do you want to go? Do you want to have 2 conferences of 24? if the SEC and the Big Ten, they're the assumed, right, Paul? They're the assumed top dogs. I've seen the people talk about, it's the NFC, AFC. We had this conversation like 2 weeks ago. We called it just that, the NFC and the AFC. And if that's the direction, but I don't know. It seems like it would be kind of hard to do that. But, yeah, if the Pac-12 falls apart, there's going to be the Big 12 looking to pick up scraps. There's going to be the Big 10 obviously taking teams. And you'd have to wonder not about the Big 12 because they've already made their move and could make further moves that only further solidify them. But the ACC, like I said, does the SEC come calling and go, wait a second, we got to go get Clemson and go get FSU, go get Miami. I mean, the possibilities are endless.
With all the new TV deals coming up, this also is spurned by that, right? And also the Big Ten says, you want Texas and Oklahoma, we probably can't get that, so we'll go get USC and UCLA. Maybe that's been going on for a year. There are two conferences that are not dissolving, for sure. We know that. The Big Ten and the SEC are only going to get bigger, better, faster, and stronger, and that's why the other three have to figure out a way. And yes, if you're Brett Yormark, you're like, hey, welcome to being a part of a commissioner of collegiate sports, and maybe he's already got some things up his sleeve. I don't know, but I do know this. One of the things that we will hear is a lot of, hey, I've heard, or someone. Be very careful, because if we would have listened to everybody, including you and others, last year in July and August, we would not be talking about a Big 12. And so we don't know what's going to happen, but yes, nothing is sacred. It'll be kind of fun to watch.
If I'm Brett Yormark, I am licking my freaking chops. Are you kidding? I'm glad that this is how my tenure's starting off. I can swoop in and maybe solidify this bad boy for the next 30 years. I mean, no, not that long, but you know what I'm saying. For the next 15 to 20, you can make the Big 12. You could solidly solidify the Big 12 as the number 3. But easily.
Look, here's what's going on right now, and this is like what people may have failed to realize is the Pac-12 and Big Ten are both in simultaneous TV negotiations. Yep. One of them has a lot of power. One of them is hoping to get it or hoping to improve their situation. The Big 12's not in theirs yet, which on the surface can seem like a bad thing because they've got to wait, but now because they can wait, and here's the other thing, there's a Power 5 conference that's got a grant of rights until 2036 that can't get involved in this at all. Like, they can't swoop in and be like, hey, whoa, what about us? The only thing that the ACC could do, and I'm sure they maybe have like a monthly call to Notre Dame saying, you guys want to get in for football now? Do you guys want to get in for football now?
Yeah.
ACC, somebody just put that on the chat. That's a very good point. They got to be on their hands and knees right now at Notre Dame. And Notre Dame for my purposes, and this is maybe just because I haven't maybe changed with the times, I always thought if Notre Dame was to ever join a conference, it would be the Big Ten. And maybe because of where they are, but we know that now USC and UCLA being a part of the Big Ten, so regionality means nothing.
Well, it can still be if you think about it. I mean, if the Big Ten's not done, I mean, all due respect to Oregon and Washington, but Notre Dame trumps them combined. Yeah. So, if they're not done and Notre Dame sees, okay, the spots are getting limited, there could be 3 conferences and Notre Dame could walk to any of them at any time and go, we want in, and they'll go, okay, come on in. Like, it doesn't matter. Well, we got uneven amount of teams. Doesn't matter. It's Notre Dame. But, yeah, I mean, if they would be the domino if they all of a sudden spoke up and said, well, we would like a spot somewhere. Big 10 would get on their knees. ACC would get on there. Big 12 would get on there. I mean, anybody would.
The thing about Notre Dame is they shouldn't do that until they're absolutely made
No, they don't have to.
They don't have to. Yeah. But this also rings in South Bend. They're like, wait a minute, yet another little earthquake or so. Hey, how about this in college football, right? Just wait another day. Well, there's always something in the last couple of years in college sports with transfer portal, with NIL, that sometimes you almost get numb to or tired of. Then you have the Texas OU story, and then you have this one, and then you have the expansion of the Big 12. And I know to me, I see a lot of this. It makes sense. Well, then they need to go get the Big 12 if they're the ones that grow, and if they're the ones that don't get poached. And right now they're in a pretty good situation. But you go Arizona schools, Utah, and Colorado. Those schools have to also want to be a part of it. And Tony Altimore's told us this, that there are maybe some political alignments and belief, but if they want to stay relevant and be a part of A5, they might have to change some of what they think. But we've heard that Colorado and the Arizona schools are more aligned with those like Cal and Stanford and others. At least that's what he's told.
Until the bomb goes off, right, Craig?
Yeah, that's before USC and UCLA leave. That's the flag bearer of the conference, the one that has basically saved the Pac-12, according to some of their reporters, with the Lincoln Riley hire. How's that look now?
No.
How's that look?
Yeah.
You know, that looks great for USC still, but that was going to be the big saving grace for the Pac-12, and all its dysfunction was going to be the rise again of USC like a phoenix, and that phoenix is flying off the Big Ten land, it appears. But
it's not hard to see how this happened. Really.
But I mean, what I was going to get to was, the Colorado thing. Colorado's in no position of power.
No.
The Big 12 could say, we'll take your call when we're ready to take your – or Big 12, we'll take your call when we're ready to take your call. You were the one that left us the first time around. You are a group that we may look at. Now, I don't know how this is all going to shake out, so we don't want to speculate too much and say, well, Big 12 is going to go get this team and that team. Like, that's part of the fun. But Colorado's not first on my list. And the reason I'm phrasing it this way is you're talking about, well, maybe there's an academic Pac-12 or whatever with Cal and Stanford, and they do that. But if you're Colorado, like, what interest would you have in staying in that conference? If USC and UCLA leave, and let's say they're not done, and for kicks and giggles, it's Oregon and Washington, you're Colorado, you're looking around the room. Yeah, really, West Coast, like, you align with the West Coast, but what coast is left? I mean, really, it's the Arizona schools and a bunch of academics in Northern California. Like, how is that? I mean, maybe that's still how you feel you fit in, but that's not really a great spot.
And the smaller universities in Washington and Oregon. So, yeah I mean, those schools in Utah. Yeah, so it's interesting. The first thing I thought of was this is a really interesting TV negotiation when the Big Ten can be like, okay, we like that number, let's make a phone call. Yeah. Or USC is frustrated.
Or how about they already had made the phone call? We like that number, but what if we happen to throw in LA?
But USC is sitting there with UCLA thinking, all right, we don't like the way these negotiations are going to the Pac-12. We don't, kind of have any idea where we're going to be. Let's call and see if the Big Ten is really, we've done that. And then they go, well, what if we made this much money? And then it's just on. So,
hey, how about this? The definition of alliance, which of course was to slow down the college football expansion talk and concerns that the SEC was about to gobble up the entire country. A union or association formed for mutual benefit, especially between countries or organizations, based on affinity and interest, nature, or qualities. The state of being joined or associated. And I'm not making fun of it. It was something, it was almost like the shot across the bow that Bowlesby sent out to ESPN or in other years when college athletics has gotten a little bit haywire. The one thing about the ACC, we can look at them and you can say something. First of all, there are some damn good schools there. And they also have a TV contract that runs through 2037. And that right there is, to me, their insurance policy with ESPN. 2037. Now, does that mean they're all safe? Does that mean they can't be broken up? Nothing's sacred. But they do have an insurance policy where the Pac-12 and the Big 12 are, and especially the Pac-12 now.
Who's their primary TV partner?
ACC? It's ESPN. Isn't it? Yeah.
Oh, weird. Who they really in bed with? SEC. I think some things could be made out to work a little bit. I think there's enough money flowing. Now, you're right though, because the grant of rights is what's keeping the Big 12 with OU and Texas for
at least a year,
at least a couple more years, maybe another year, whatever. So yeah, you're talking about big price tags. I don't know what the exit would be, but the ACC is not really a part of this equation right now. It's the Pac-12. That's the story.
They're the ones that are trying to circle the wagons.
And then once we know what's actually happening there, and something official, which until it's official, then it's all just speculation. But not every domino can fall all at once. So let the Pac-12 dominoes fall where they're going to fall and then see what everybody does in response. But I think the one thing you could probably rule out is the ACC going and poaching teams, because I think now it's just so topsy-turvy that it's like, what would really be the point in that? And I don't know that their teams would all be up for them going and grabbing more teams and watering down their remaining contract. And yeah, it's going to be fascinating to see how this starts to crumble everything else.
And again, the ACC has a placeholder that they look down the table and, hope that one day Notre Dame walks through that door. But until Notre Dame is forced into doing that, they're not going to do it. And look, as an alum of an ACC school, if that conference were to break up, it wouldn't break my heart, And I think that they're probably fine because, again, they got the ace in the hole. But if the SEC said, well, why don't we make something out of, or the SEC, ESPN said, let's make something out of this here and form what we want to, and goes and gets the best four schools out of there, the most popular ones, North Carolina, Clemson, Florida State, and Miami, leaving and making that a 10-team league wouldn't be the craziest thing I thought of in the world. But right now it's about the Pac-12 and how they can keep their heads above water at all if the Big Ten's just decided after a year to just crawfish on any kind of deal and go, no, that was just last year so we could figure out what the SEC's plan was. Now that you've served your purpose to us, we will cannibalize you.
We have Max Olson, athletic.com, college football writer. We hope to have him today. Normally he's at 4. We have him at 4:30. No Mickey today. Craig's off the radar. Paul's top 5 is normal. Sam Siegelman of On3Sports.com on the Elite 11 camp, and we have news on that as well. And sports law attorney Dan Lust is going to join us today on many things. It could have been Deshaun Watson. Again, now we can even get into him with that as well. So we told you about USC and UCLA. Before we get too far down the road, Baylor got a commitment today from Calvin Clemens out of Kansas, who his wish list was Iowa State, Baylor, Minnesota, Oklahoma State, and Nebraska. Austin Novosad is right now second as they enter the final day of the Elite 11. Baylor commit Austin Novosad, and the Oklahoma Arnold from Denton Guyer High School right now is at number 1. There's a couple of NBA notes, including Baylor's Royce O'Neal at Utah has been traded or is going to be traded to Brooklyn, free agency in the NBA, including Kevin Durant demanding a trade.
And he'll get to see Kevin Durant's old locker.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, and we'll see what happens with Off the Radar, because this is I'd much rather talk about college football stuff than random stuff elsewhere. So by the time we roll around to 4:45, we'll see where we are, but I might just make Off the Radar everything that we're already talking about, because I'm way more interested in that.
Hey, behind me, can you give us to my right, over my right shoulder, there's a football, and to the right of the football, to the left is the Cincinnati helmet. Steve Shook, thank you. Sent us the Cincinnati Bearcats mini helmet as it now joins our background on 365 Sports
and
on
if
YouTube.
You're Cincinnati and you're BYU and you're Houston and you're UCF. Welcome, Big 12. New brethren, and just in time, huh? I mean, look at them getting into the Big 12 at the time that they did. What looked like it was going to be the total downfall of a conference, thanks to Texas and Oklahoma. And their actions, behind the scenes and in the dark of night. I mean, they had to do what they had to do for themselves, and not gonna break that down at all. I mean, they're set for life, but it did open the door for those 4 schools to get this opportunity. And now look where they are. I mean, now they're in the Big 12 securely starting next year, and they may have some new company that's going to be joining them as well, depending on how all this goes, but certainly in a much better spot than some of those. I mean, if you're in the Pac-12 right now, if you're like lower end of the Pac-12, you got to be looking around going, oh, crap. Like, if this happens, I mean, what do we – I mean, all of a sudden you're looking around the room and there's not a lot of people left in there, just like with the schools last year in the Big 12 when Texas and Oklahoma announced, like,
yep, absolutely.
Whoa, what's going on here? So,
and that's when you heard so-and-so's going here and so-and-so. Everyone
Kansas to the Big Ten.
And if you are UCF in Cincinnati, Houston, and Brigham Young, even though you got to still kind of wait what's going on here, you got in under the deadline. And now can the Big 12, can Brett Yormark do something with what's available or what is available, and also, of course, going further into what is going to be new TV contracts. Man, right now the chat room is going so fast and furious. 1,032 of you right now. Thank you for being a part of what we're doing. That doesn't include the online and or all of you on the text line as well. Thank you so much for being a part of this show. It is just wait a while, right? Think about in the last 2 years how college athletics has been shaken to its core, and in some ways great, and in some ways traumatic. Depends on where you are. But it's going to be interesting to see how everybody continues to kind of go and watch what happens. I don't know what's going to happen. I absolutely, would it be great? Would it be great if the Big 12 could add somebody out of the Pac-12? If you wanted to add your 2 of Washington and Oregon, they may already be looking into the Big 10. We don't know that. And who knows, maybe the Pac-12 tries to pull off a miracle and expand their own conference despite losing USC and UCLA if they could hold on to anybody else. It will be so much fun to watch. We just got a chat room super chat for $19.99 and $9.99. Thank you.
Really appreciate that. Yeah, no doubt. Shout out to whoever sent that. Do appreciate that. What you just said there is really interesting, because when the Big 12 lost Texas and Oklahoma on paper, even though, again, they're around for at least this year, probably next year, and who knows after that, maybe another year after that. But what is the Big 12 going to do? Oh, they're dead. They're screwed. They're ducks in the water. I mean, they're done. Oh, they're going to go get Cincinnati and BYU and UCF and Houston. How's that going to work? Well, it's hasn't started yet, but it seems like it's going to work out pretty okay. And my question is okay, well, how do you do that with the Pac-12? Because you just mentioned maybe the Pac-12 goes and grabs somebody. Well, congratulations, San Diego State and Boise State and UNLV and everybody who's been mentioned to us by their fan bases that should have been Big 12 candidates for the last year. Everybody's been screaming about the Broncos and the Aztecs and all those teams. Well, maybe this is your opening into the Pac-12. Was the Pac-12 going to stop being so damn snooty? I mean, where did that get them ultimately? Right? We'd never take Baylor and TCU. We're not taking any religious schools. We're not taking any measly, Big 12 teams. Well, man, something about burnt bridges and things like that. I don't know.
Pick up the phone first.
Yeah.
I'll tell you, the one thing I keep thinking about Stanford is, since they have their gigantic endowment and everything that they could do, is just go independent. Just like, you can be good in every sport and play whoever you want, essentially, and not have to worry about.
Somebody brought that up in the chat room, Paul. I'm glad you said that.
Just go independent.
From 308, if Notre Dame joins the ACC, and again, that's if, doesn't that open contract to renegotiate the ACC grant of rights, like Clemson or Florida State then could also find a loophole? I don't know about the legalities of that. I'm not going to act like, but it's an interesting question. I appreciate that, or even a comment.
The loophole would have to be ESPN making it all right for those ACC schools.
Or making it right for themselves.
Well, but I mean, it's going to be. I mean, it would be mutually beneficial, but they'd have to say, like, look, don't worry about a 13-year grant of rights. And here, people may not realize this. Like, look, they might have big alums in a lot of places, but Florida State's got a big name. They're not sitting on University of Texas money where they can just be like, here you go.
There are like 3 piles of University of Texas money, and UT's on one of those piles, and that's about it.
Also, we're talking about the NFC AFC thing. I know we need to take our first break here in a second, but just saw David Hale put this out there, and this is going back to that NFC AFC thing. Even at just 16 teams each, I think you can make a pretty good argument today. The Big Ten and SEC don't have much of a need for the NCAA anymore. We're talking about next dominoes to fall. I can't help but think the NCAA might be one of them. And, he's right. I mean, you could see those two teams setting it up. I think that, obviously with the Big Ten going and grabbing West Coast schools, that does give you more of that geography and that reach where you already have like kind of the North and the Midwest locked down with the Big Ten. You've got the whole, Southeast and now some of the Southwest with the additions of Oklahoma and Texas. It seems like there's like some people that have been in a room really having some meetings that we are all not aware of because that does make a lot of sense. And, the only thing is that leaves a lot of really quality programs out by themselves if you were to just take those two. But in theory, you could do that and have it be an NFC, AFC type of thing. I don't know that I see the great picture in that all the way because, again, you're leaving out a lot of really good institutions by doing so. And I think that would also lead to where you have absolutely no argument about the payment of players and employees and all of that. But if you're making so much money where all of a sudden you're USC making $100 million a year because you're in the Big Ten, well, maybe the payment of players like their employees isn't as much of a big deal anymore because you're making $100 million freaking dollars just off your TV contract. So, that's a whole nother can of worms that stems from this. But I will say, yesterday the new Big 12 commissioner was announced, and I read more about him last night, and I feel better about it. I'm still a little bit curious, but this totally throws that for just a whole different loop now because the landscape has dramatically changed in 24 hours. Just incredible. And the questions are endless, and glad everybody who loves college football, even if they're a little mad at it right now, are all here with us and as interested as we are in all this.
All right, we will take a break, and Dan Lust, sports law attorney, will join us here momentarily. We have Max Olson in an hour, theathletic.com, and obviously a lot to get at. There's a poll right now that has 222 votes about USC and UCLA. Are they gone? 93% of you say yes, and I would put mine in there for a yes as well. We have super chat money coming in. We appreciate that. We haven't really seen that much of late, but we appreciate it. And over 1,000, nearly 1,300. Thank you for being a part of what we're doing right now because we want to be your place for college football whenever it is, even late into the night when you can watch some of the things we put up in various segments. We are Sikkim 365 Radio, 365 Sports. Keep it coming. Here we go. Dan Lust next on Sikkim 365 Radio. City of Woodway's having that tasting coming up, that craft beer tasting coming up. And right now they have tickets available, $15. David Ramirez, July 7th. David Ramirez, July 7th. Will be a live concert. The Pavilion event tickets are on sale right now. $15. Discover Woodway putting on the Taste of Southern Roots, craft beer tasting and concert, the Pavilion Event Center. Enjoy live music, David Ramirez, Buffalo Hunt, Brett Welch, delicious food, craft beer tasting with 10 select beers from Southern Roots Brewing Company. Opening up at 6 o'clock. The doors open. Tickets only $15. How do you get there? You can go by the Pavilion, City of Woodway, in Woodway, just on the southern part of Waco, or go to their website, and you can go online and also get your tickets and get more information at discoverwoodway.com. July 7th, Pavilion Event Center. It is the Taste of Southern Roots, craft beer tasting and concert at the Pavilion, discoverwoodway.com.
The 4th of July sales event is going on now at Allen Samuelson Waco. The new 2022 impressive Wagoneer Series 2 and 3 have 2.9% for 72 months, plus $4,000 competitive bonus cash. That's right, and $4,000 bonus cash. This incentive on the new 2022 Wagoneers for a limited time only at Allen Samuelson Waco. First responders get $500 extra cash. Come shop the huge new car and truck inventory today at Allen Samuelson Waco.
Come by. Let's be friends.
Don Humidor, your home with a 48-foot walk-in humidor with the elite cigar brands from around the world, including the #1 cigar of the year, Aging Room Cuatro Nicaragua. Plus, they have the great brands like Macanudo and Arturo Fuente, Rocky Patel, Aston, and so much more. CBD, great for sore muscles, aches and pains, sleep, Vita Dreams, and anxiety, mild depression, general health and wellness. Their staff very knowledgeable on the subject. If anyone is curious about CBD, ask Carol and Ashley. Don Humidor in the Townwood Shopping Center off Valley Mills in Waco.
One size fits all. That may be all right for an adjustable belt or cheap sunglasses, but when it comes to your financial needs, no one wants a one-size-fits-all strategy. Cam Heathcott, your Edward Jones financial advisor, knows that his most important goals are yours. That's why he takes the time to understand your needs, knowing you. That's how Edward Jones makes sense of investing. Cam Heathcott, covering Conroe and Houston, 936-756-7717 or cam.heathcott@edwardjones.com. Edward Jones, member SIPC.
Let Camille Johnson Realtors guide you seamlessly through the process of buying your dream home or selling your current one. Commercial, farm and ranch, or residential, Camille Johnson Realtors can smoothly and successfully lead you through any transaction. With a team of 28 experienced agents who are excited about serving you, Camille Johnson Realtors services the entire greater Waco area. If you're in the market to buy or sell, contact Camille Johnson Realtors, 104 Midway Center in Woodway, or find them online at www.camillejohnson.com. Camille Johnson Realtors, elegant, charming, warm. Welcome home.
You know what would make this moment better? Pizza. Dough made from scratch and an Italian family sauce recipe pizza. 3 fresh signature cheeses making a melty blanket of perfection pizza. Like loads of premium toppings like crispy Old World pepperoni, savory Italian sausage, and fresh sliced veggies pizza. That's Marco's Pizza. Visit marcos.com and make any moment better. And with 4 locations in Waco, Belmead, China Spring, Woodway, and soon to open in Robinson. Marco's. Pizza lovers get it.
Do you or your kids get nervous about going to the dentist? Stonewood Dental, Dr. Steve Childress, he can help.
I've spent a career taking care of patients who as children had bad experiences, and now they're adults that hate going to the dentist. If I get a kid at 3 years old and they come every 6 months and it's a happy experience, it's normal for them. Now they have an accident at 6 or 7 or 8 at school. Now they have a broken tooth or a trauma, and they have to come here. They're used to lights, they're used to water in their mouth, they're used to experience, they already trust us. It's amazing what we can do with that kid without it being a negative thing. But if I see a 6 or 7 or 8 year old that's never been to the dentist, and now they have a trauma or an unfortunate unexpected toothache, it's harder to do that for that kid and it not be somewhat of a negative experience. So bottom line is I try to teach kids and adults and teenagers and everybody the way I'd want my family treated, which is where it's a necessary part of life. You just take care of it. It doesn't have to be that big a deal.
Learn more, stonewood-dental.com.
This is Sikkim 365 Radio. Text us at 254-339-1122. The Sikkim 365 Radio text line is sponsored by Riverbend Liquor and Wine, with the most extensive variety of craft beer in Waco. A hidden gem on Lakeshore Drive and 19th Street.
Dan Lust, scheduled to be a part of the show, and a pretty damn good day to have him any day because of what he does and what he can help break down for us in the legal stuff in sports, and even today's news with USC and UCLA and the Big Ten and what happens after that. Dan, thanks for your time. There's so much to get to, but your thoughts yourself as a sports guy, just USC and UCLA and the Big Ten, the start of what could be two massive conferences or whatever is next.
Well, what's funny is that I guess we should have predicted this, or at least some form of the Big Ten trying to play catch-up after obviously Texas and Oklahoma moved last year. I was kind of maybe there weren't that many, but I was thinking maybe, right, a school like Baylor or a school like Kansas would be pretty attractive to the Big Ten, right? You guys, Baylor had just won the national championship in basketball. Kansas, a blue, but obviously ended up winning the championship this year. But it was pretty, public that I think it's an arms race. So, what happened after that? We had this alliance between the ACC, the Pac-12, and the Big Ten. And, for better or for worse, there was quiet, and as has been well reported, no contract that bound any of these conferences in the alliance. So fast forward, right? Kansas, Baylor, those guys stay put. And what do you know? There was a little bit of a civil war amongst the alliance because two blue bloods, Pac-12 obviously loses USC and UCLA. So maybe you could have predicted it, but how Bob Bowlesby kind of solidified the conference, number one, and then this alliance, number two. Maybe people were thrown off the scent. So Big Ten striking when people maybe least expected it.
Dan, I guess as an attorney, there are lessons you can tell to people. Like, if you get arrested, don't talk until your attorney is there. And two, always have a contract, right? This may be a lesson for that.
Yes, and I think so. I mean, people were making fun of the alliance last year, like, oh, this is just worthy of a handshake. I mean, it's in theory billions of dollars that could be exchanging if you guys violate this so-called unwritten alliance, and that's exactly what we have here. So I've gotten the people in my DMs, hey, is there any legal liability between the Pac-12 and the Big Ten? In theory, there's always something we call tortious interference with the contract. If the Big Ten could be potentially accused of violating Pac-10s or Pac-12 conferences, their television contracts, certainly that's possible. But it happens so often in college football, and we never have anything like that. But if you guys remember back in the Big 12 saga with Bob Bowlesby, he accused ESPN of this tortious interference with the contract, helping schools try to leave the conference. So, yeah, that's certainly on the table, but a much easier way to sue if there had been some type of contract and some type of agreement between the ACC, Pac-12, and Big Ten not to steal each other's schools, but not in writing. So a little bit less likely we're going to have a lawsuit here.
Dan, if you're not one of the two schools being mentioned, and as many have said out there, reported out there already, that the Big Ten might not be done. So let's assume there's a couple more that are in negotiations as well. So if you're one of those schools that's not, you're completely blindsided the same way that TCU and Baylor and the Big 12 schools were. What is your first phone call as far as like legal advice and all that? What is the first thing you think those schools are doing right now?
I think what's probably more interesting is the calls that they're getting, right? They're probably getting calls from the commissioner to check in with them to see if, Kliavkov over in the Pac-12 and maybe, whatever. I think, I don't know. I mean, we'll see. Even Greg Sankey, right? Can you imagine the fireworks here? If the Big Ten could pull someone away from the SEC, as unlikely as that is. So I think any of the Power 5 schools, they're being very mindful. I'm sure they're scheduling meetings as we speak to check everyone's temperature and to see if maybe, right, there's some type of way they can keep those schools on board. And if there is potentially a school that was complaining about something or complaining about any outstanding issues, now it's time for the commissioners to do their job. They're paid very high salaries to try to protect the assets, to protect the schools within the conference. So yeah, if you are not receiving calls, maybe it's your time to make a call to the commissioner if you need some TLC.
Dan, in this day and age, have you ever seen so much that is testing the legal system as we see now across the board?
Well, it's an interesting era right now. I mean, conference realignment has happened before, nothing new, but the NIL era definitely adds another level of insanity to all this because, what are we seeing? I mean, these are all moves to try to create super conferences to try to attract the best talent in the country. And, short of paying someone a very high number, the NIL process, which, again, it's kind of a murky waters, what you're allowed to do when you cross the line. We don't know because there hasn't been any type of enforcement from the NCAA or state attorney general. So in the middle of all this, you have the conferences saying, you know what, let's build the superpowers here. So, chasing those big television dollars. I will say that one thing that we should be looking forward to on this scale, and maybe this is part of it, I can't tell you exactly why, but we're going to have a debate at some point in college sports. The more these athletes start to look like professional athletes, the more, right, that some court in our country, and there's certainly courts that are dealing with this issue now, they haven't gone all the way up to the highest courts, but we're going to have this conversation. Are athletes, college athletes, are they employees? And, at our professional level, certainly baseball players, football players, basketball players, they get a piece of the television pie. That's something that's done through collective bargaining. And I don't know, maybe the bigger these television deals get, when you add schools like Texas and Oklahoma and USC and UCLA, the more you're going to have athletes underneath those roofs within those conferences saying, man, I mean, they're making money off of my name, image, and likeness. What happened to name, image, and likeness rights? Maybe I should be getting a piece of it. So, obviously these two conversations are happening hand in hand. So you got to be paying attention to the whole landscape.
Dan, what does collectively bargaining, I mean, not to say it's easier in the professional leagues, but you do have more of a nice round number of union members in that. In college athletics, it's a lot more union members. It's a lot bigger union. So what would that look like, collectively bargaining and becoming a union of college athletes?
I think the part that maybe people underestimate, and I think maybe guys a year ago I was warning you that this could be coming down the pike, and we're getting a little bit closer as we speak. But you don't have to collectively. You get to pick the group that you want to bargain with, right? For all intents and purposes, it could be, right, Baylor football. It doesn't have to be all Baylor athletes, because if you're a football player, you're looking around, and Baylor basketball as well. Those are the two revenue-generating sports, football and basketball, largely throughout the country. So, it doesn't have to be as big as, encompassing every single sport, because at the end of the day, let's say you want a piece of that football contract. I'm not necessarily sure why, if you're a parent of a Baylor football player, why you'd want someone from the Baylor swimming team, to be involved in that conversation. So, if and when we do get there, which isn't particularly close, I'm just saying it's making its way up. It's going to take a school and some athletes to challenge it. But yeah, you could have definitely lines divided across sports, different unions for different sports. It's a very complicated landscape that, unfortunately we're not here yet. And hopefully the NIL shakes itself out a little bit before we get to this employee conversation.
Dan, I wanted to ask you a non-college football question since we have you on. I'm sure, and I saw your Twitter feed, you saw the latest on Freddie Freeman and his former agent, Casey Close, who's now come out with a statement who's saying that Doug Gottlieb's comments about what went down were totally false, and now he's seeking perhaps, pursuing some charges or whatever he's going to do, but threatening to respond. What do you make of the whole situation with Freddie Freeman and now his former agent and Casey Close?
So it's in the developing story by the minute. ESPN has a report. I think Excel Sports Management released a statement. I was curious where Doug Gottlieb got that from. He was the only one reporting it, and I don't, he's not a Jeff Passan or a Buster Olney, someone that's usually tied into baseball in particular. So a report came out maybe about, half an hour, guys, from Excel Sports Management. It seems that Casey Close is accusing Braves management of being the ones that leaked that story to Doug Gottlieb, if you just want to read between the lines. So, now you have a whole other element to this. Obviously there could be potential arbitration in that matter if he wants to file a claim against Casey Close. Freddie Freeman could say, hey, you cost me my legacy in Atlanta. You didn't tell me about this final offer again, assuming, those alleged reports are true from Doug Gottlieb. Then the other part of it, which I'm following, as a little lawyer in me, Doug Gottlieb is being accused of making this thing up. So Casey Close is trying to say Doug Gottlieb made it up. It's inaccurate. And now his new report is almost saying the Braves are mischaracterizing it. So Casey Close seems to, he's almost in damage control mode. So, people can threaten defamation a lot, but to win a defamation case against a public figure like Casey Close, you'll have to show that those entities knew what they were saying is false, but they said it anyway. It's this concept called actual malice, which I don't know if Doug Gottlieb was told that by Atlanta. He doesn't know it to be false. He heard it from Atlanta. So Atlanta, right, that seems to be the one now that Casey Close is directing his anger towards, that if they really made this thing up, his reputation has been harmed, right, to some extent. So maybe those are Atlanta, those lawyers over with the Braves are now kind of getting their P's and Q's together.
Dan, Deshaun Watson, NFL, that hearing, the NFL, the reports are, and from reputable people, that they want at least a year. What do you think is going to happen here? Is Deshaun Watson's side going to take the NFL to court and look at other previous rulings, or maybe even get into the dirt with them?
It's tough to say, right? I think we should point out for the Deshaun Watson, scenario, it's kind of unprecedented one way or the other. There's never been an athlete in professional sports, let alone football, that has 20 accusers accusing him of something like this. Just the numbers are staggering. So it's tough for either side to say that the judge, if they decide, right, potentially 0 games for Watson or a year suspension. There's also talk of potentially an indefinite suspension, that Watson's going to be out as long as the NFL wants him to be. But, in terms of an appeal, taking this to a higher court, right, there's no precedent to look back on. If there's any precedent, maybe it's a little controversial what I'm about to say, but, the Robert Kraft scenario from a couple years ago when he was accused of some type of, misconduct at a massage parlor, whatever you want to call it, he didn't receive any type of, discipline as far as I'm aware from the NFL at all. So if there's any, precedent that seems kind of similar, Watson's going to point it out and say, listen, last time this happened, it was with an owner who got 0. And according to the NFL's personal conduct policy, owners are supposed to be held to the same, personal conduct issues as players are, yet he was punished for nothing. So if we're really holding to precedent, here's a scenario where someone was, mixed up in a potential massage scenario. It wasn't anything non-consensual with Kraft, but 0 games were issued. So nothing in the personal conduct policy requires some type of crime, some type of criminal charges, or to be found liable by a civil jury. It's just optics, and certainly the optics are bad either way, yet no owner has been punished for anything like this.
Dan, do you think that Rusty Hardin still sticks with the legal argument of it's not technically illegal to ask for a happy ending?
I think he definitely wants those comments back. We have not heard that argument come up since that ill-fated trip to, I think it was Houston Sports Radio. Yeah, the comments that will go down in history. It's not necessarily illegal to get a happy ending. I don't know what possessed Rusty Hardin to make that argument.
To deflect, I don't know. Dan, sportsman, I'm telling you, it is a crazy time. What a great time for you. You've been amazing at Sports Law Lust, by the way, on Twitter. It's a fantastic feed, plus what he does, Condetrimental as well. Could you have picked a better time to kind of vault out in front of people the way you did? I don't know exactly when it all started, but in recent years?
I don't think so. I mean, listen, I was in the middle of doing our podcast today, covering the Freddie Freeman stuff, covering baseball arbitration. And in the middle of the podcast, right, this USC UCLA news breaks, obviously some breach of contract issues. And then, the topic that we didn't discuss here, that Kevin Durant, formerly of University of Texas, he demands a trade out of Brooklyn. So, when you look closely enough, there is usually a legal story to every sports scenario. There's always going to be lawyers involved in some way, shape, or form. And in our show, Conduct Detrimental, we try to bring out the lighter side and just talk as if we were at a sports bar, but we were talking about the legal concept. So, we have a lot of fun with it, and I take great pride in trying to break these issues down in a digestible way for sports fans. Because at the end of the day, I'm kind of a sports fan first, lawyer second. So it comes with the territory.
Thank you very much, Dan, for your time. Craig, anything else for Dan, Paul? All right, thank you, Dan. Appreciate your time. Dan Lust, sports law attorney. It's a great feed at Sports Law Lust on Twitter, and he has a podcast, and he does an amazing job.
The podcast is Conduct Detrimental. You called it Con Detrimental. That's just the Twitter tag.
And also, one thing on the chat room. Here's our first of all, the story, USC UCLA. There's 3 things going on. Those who are fans of whatever's left of the Pac-12, those who are fans of the ACC, and fans of the Big 12. And it's amazing. It's like 33%, 33%, 30%. Which one is up for grabs next, or which one's the weakest? Why do you? I love it, but we don't know. And I get the speculation of who's going to go where and who's going to get rated and all that. And the Big 12, for whatever reason, they're like a cat with 9 lives. 2010, they lose 2 teams. Then it's all of a sudden A&M and Missouri. And there was a lot of rumors even before that. And then they lose Texas and Oklahoma. And here they are. And imagine where we were a year ago and imagine where we are now. And by the end of the month, God knows, or heck, it is the end of the month today, right?
Yes.
Where we might be. As it's fun to see. It'll be fun to watch who ends up joining the Big Ten, anything else with the SEC, and, of course, who survives. And on top of that, you know that thing about having your own national championship? Well, the more teams you add to the mix, the more it can be legitimate. But I still think you're going to have to end up with 48 to 65 teams or so still a part of it to be a legitimate, overall, whatever you want to call it, national championship that's validated. All right, we come back to wrap up this 3 o'clock hour at 4:30, Max Olson. So we have plenty of time to read and hear from you as well. Want to do the lines at 4?
Yeah, sure.
We'll open the phone lines up to you. Your thoughts about today. Yesterday, it was the new Big 12 commissioner, Brett Yarmark. 254-339-1122. If you want to jump on, we want to hear from you. Sikkim 365 Radio and 365 Sports.
New cars and trucks arriving weekly at Richard Carr. Call or go online for current inventory right now. You can go by the dealership right now as well to buy or build your perfect vehicle, and you can also get your name on their inbound vehicle list to secure your spot in line to reserve a brand new Buick, GMC, or Cadillac before anybody else. Basically, if you're looking to buy brand new, get on that inbound vehicle list because there's supply chain issues, microchip shortages, all that's causing dealerships some headaches. So it's a little bit harder or a little bit slower of a process to get that brand new vehicle to the lot in many places. Well, Richard Carr is trying to alleviate that stress, give you a better timeline by getting that list together, that inbound vehicle list. Put your name there. It's like standing in line. Now, that is if you are looking to buy new. If you're looking to get into something a little bit quicker, well, they do have new cars that are available, but they've got the pre-owned cars and trucks as well. So if you're looking to get into a ride today, consider one of their dozens of quality pre-owned cars or trucks. All of them have undergone a 172-point inspection before hitting the lot, so you can drive them with peace of mind that as somebody who is driving a clunker, a junker, whatever you want to call it, for a good couple of years up until several months ago, that peace of mind part, man, don't take that for granted. Anybody out there who fires up that engine and is just hoping to get through the day, hoping that there's not another issue or the warning lights come on, it adds so much stress. So to get that peace of mind is a big deal, but you can also get a great deal while you're at Richard Carr. They've served Waco and Central Texas for over 23 years, offering award-winning service at their collision and service center, and they are the dealer that you can count on, as I said, for great deals and superior service for the life of your car. So trust the good local people you can count on in Central Texas and in Waco for over 20 years. Richard Carr. Log on to richardcarr.com today. Call now or go see them now off Highway 6 at the Imperial exit.
Hey, this is Bryce Petty, former starting quarterback and 2-time Big 12 champion, and I know firsthand the importance of being in top shape both on and off the field. So listen up, men. If you're feeling beat down day in and day out and looking for that high-performance edge that separates the men from the boys, then look no further than the Petty Clinic Low T in Waco. Petty Clinic is a comprehensive men's healthcare clinic with an atmosphere catering to men. Board-certified Dr. Kent Petty has a special interest in offering the highest quality medical care to men of all ages. Some of the services offered include screening and treatment for low testosterone or thyroid, infertility, high blood pressure, diabetes, high cholesterol, sleep apnea, while offering comprehensive wellness exams and complete men's health lab panels. High performance men, remember, it's not just a Petty thing. This is Bryce Petty, encouraging you to reach out and Google search Petty Clinic Low T or go to pettycliniclowt.com and get your complimentary lab screening today.
It's plain and simple. Waco Custom Marketplace is the one-stop shop for what you need for tailgating, from charcoal, cold beer, and wine. And, of course, customize your order with brisket, tri-tip, sausage, wings, smoked pork tenderloin, country style or pork spare ribs, marinated beef and chicken fajita meat, ground beef and chili, meat, hot dogs, and burgers, buns, seasoning, sauces, chips. There's fresh baked bread and kolaches every day, breakfast sausage links. And you can also customize your favorite favorite cut of steaks from Select, Choice, or Prime, bacon wrap fillets, ribeyes, New York strip, sirloin, T-bone, and porterhouse. Full-service butcher shop includes pork, poultry, beef, chicken, and seafood, serving Waco restaurants and families since 1940. Your one-stop shop for beef, pork, poultry, and seafood needs. Waco Custom Marketplace, 425 Lake Air Drive, or WacoCustomMarketplace.com.
Riverbend Liquor and Wine, Lakeshore Drive, North 19th Street, right behind the bank, is a hidden gem in Waco. If you're a fan of bourbon, especially local Texas bourbons, that's where you gotta go. Balcones, TX, Devil's River, whatever it is, they've got it. Riverbend Liquor and Wine, plus the best selection of craft beers in Waco, seasonally churned out throughout the year. Whether it's spring, summer, fall, or winter, Riverbend Liquor and Wine, best selection of craft beers, a speedy drive-through window, and excellent customer service. Find out more on Instagram or just go by and see them. Lakeshore Drive at North 19th Street behind the bank.
In the market for a quality metal building? Since 1943, Pioneer Steel and Pipe has helped Central Texas residential and commercial customers with metal building design, panel options, building components, and trim options. Pioneer Steel and Pipe's residential line is energy efficient, offers low maintenance, reduces insurance payments, is impact resistant, and carries up to a 45-year limited warranty. In addition, they can also help you find a metal building contractor for your project. Pioneer Steel and Pipe with locations in Waco and Bryan and at pioneersboys.com.
Stepping into a new pair of boots is great, but stepping into the boots of a U.S. Army officer can also add confidence and leadership skills to your son or daughter's career path. There are more than 150 occupational specialties to help them find the best fit for their future. See all the things your son or daughter can achieve in our boots at GoArmy.com. U.S. Army Waco Recruiting Company, 254-598-8131 or 254-776-1543.
Welcome back to Sikkim 365 Radio. Have you subscribed to our YouTube channel? Search 365 Sports on YouTube.
254-339-1122. Another poll has just put up. Will the ACC expand or shrink? There's expand or shrink as an option. We appreciate you for being a part of that as well. There's also been the poll about the Pac-12 gone or not, 93, or UCLA and UCLA gone or not, 93% pretty much has stated that number from the beginning. And I'm just throwing out there, you have polls to do. We want to hear from you, 254-339-1122. Stanford as an independent makes sense. Even Cal as an independent, would you not think makes sense? And I still think Oregon and Washington will be a part of the attachment to the Big Ten, and then possibly we would think Stanford and Cal have to be a part of that discussion too.
Yeah, I think about, last year when we were trying to figure out if the Big 12 was going to collapse, like where everybody kind of fit in. The ones you don't really fit in anywhere would be the Oregon State and Washington State, because they're kind of out there and they're not very big schools and all that, but they, there's, you never know what's going to happen. It was kind of like where do you put Kansas State and Iowa State if the Big Ten didn't want them, and those kind of theories that were out there last year. But yeah, the Big 12 has options. Like everybody has options. The Pac-12 seems to have less and less. And if Washington and Oregon pick up the phone today and ask USC who their contact is at the Big Ten and say we'd like to get on this, I don't see the Big Ten turning them down.
Guys, those calls have already been made. Exactly. Look at today. I mean, the alliance. What was the alliance? Well, the alliance was being made. People who were helping make the alliance were crafting the plans for today.
Just like
the Big 12. Yeah. So, that's all already going on. I don't think that, Washington woke up today and was like, well, wait a second, what? I think those calls and those conversations, much like with OU and Texas's people and whoever they were dealing with in the SEC, I think those are, how long? My question is, how long have they been going on? How many meetings have happened in the Pac-12 where people have shook hands and smiled and said, hey, the future's bright, and just were lying to each other the entire time? Because that's what was happening in the Big 12. But, yeah, man, the departure from just a year ago and the feeling the Big 12 had, they've basically just taken it, moved it, and placed it on the shoulders of the Pac-12. And now the Pac-12, I would love to have cared enough to have identified maybe the most obnoxious Pac-12 fan during the Big 12's struggle there. like who really went out of their way to be like a D-head about it and talk about the conference dying of all that? Where's that guy today? Where is that guy's Twitter? I want to see that Twitter because shoes on the other foot, buddy. And I see there was a count a second ago talking about, this big mutated conference of like the Big 12 PAC whatever conference. Like the Big 12, if you're the Big 12 right now, you're somebody who's got, a lot more bargaining power all of a sudden, but I mean, you get to pick and choose who you really want to bargain with. Like a lot depends on what the Big Ten may also still be taking and what the SEC might also be involved in taking. Because I definitely believe that they're not sitting on their hands. I'm sure they've got a chess move that's like two, moves down that we're not even thinking of just yet. Because all of these have clearly been talked about and were going on. And so we thought it was done. I saw like Stuart Mandel make this comment of. He had a recent tweet. Last year's Texas OU bombshell wound up having minimal ripple effects. Today's USC UCLA shocker feels more like the dam just broke. It's a Big Ten SEC world now. What are you talking about? The ripple effects are still being felt from Texas and Oklahoma. That's what started the ripple to begin with.
This is a reaction to it, yeah.
What are you talking about? Minimal effects? Minimal effects, how many conferences just completely changed over? They're just not the conferences that you choose to cover. They're not the big conferences, but look underneath the Power 5. How much changeover was there as a result of the Big 12? A freaking ton, man. A freaking ton. And now you have a move like today. This move wasn't just out of the blue. This move's, absolutely just a following chapter to what happened last summer, a year later. So, I don't know. I disagree with that wholeheartedly. I think that's still the ripples being effect from the big bomb that was dropped last year when Brett Zorneman decided to just shake the entire college football world, awake or what. I don't know. I don't even know how to explain it, what that was, that reaction to Brett Zorneman's report. But that same feeling's being felt today, that's for sure.
Well, we appreciate you. Nearly 1,500 at one point was we were having you on, viewing what we do at 365 Sports. And this is one that I think there's maybe a little bit of this in all of us. And even if you are one of the megas, the logos, the blue bloods that are getting bigger, better, faster, stronger, and richer, really getting tired of the college scene and all of its issues. I'm not saying you should feel that way. This is from David Warburton. And David, thank you for the chat. One of the things that it does seem like it's like the rearranging of the Titanic, and then all of a sudden it leans another direction, right? It's almost like college sports in general is not going to sink. The NCAA is dead in the water. They are. And now it's almost refreshing in a way, and yet it's also a little bit scary. I mean, there's got to be a little bit of this, where are we going to end up, or what else is going to happen, and really what will be the changes, and I'm okay with it.
I think the scary part, though, is that there is an end to this somewhere, and it doesn't end well for everyone. So that's what I think people are scared about, but it's going to continue rippling, and the reason that it's not just going to be simple is that there are people out there who are going to keep fighting for their spot because you don't want to lose it. So, but there's still, there's just so many different layers to this. Of the Pac-12 caught itself in an expiring television contract, and it put them really vulnerable. Like, one of the things looking back that at least the Big 12 had was they had 3 or 4 years left on their deal television-wise when this all went down that they could fall back on. The Pac-12 is in the middle of renegotiating their deal, which is up after next year. So they don't have that to fall back on right now as many years. So they're definitely way more in scramble mode than the Big 12 was last year.
What was David's comment? You never mentioned David's comment. You just mentioned that he had a comment.
Oh, damn. I'm sorry. Let me see if I still have it highlighted. I was basically just he's tired of all the collegiate athlete, all the issues that are going on in college sports right now. Yeah,
I think a lot of people are, and I think that's something you got to be careful with if you're, college officials. But clearly they see it differently. Clearly they don't really. It's become abundantly obvious they don't care about schools that aren't going to bring them a bang for their buck. There's not really a whole lot of care right now for the schools that aren't flagships. Or a part of, some major grand plan that's going on. And if you're new, then you don't realize this, but people that have been with us for a while now. I've been screaming that from the hilltops about like just the state of college football. And anytime you raise any sort of level of concern, you have some yahoo who wants to go, oh, well, you don't care about the players. Or, oh, you don't want players to get paid. And it's like, no, I would like some structure. Oh, well, you don't believe in NIL. So there's always that idiot you got to drown out. But been saying, like, this is not leading to a clear picture of college sports. This is leading to college sports not really being college sports and just being minor league pro sports is what it's leading to.
Minor league either.
And you see people arguing about, well, just they'll license the brands. Well, then what is the point of that? Like, what? You're not a Michigan State fan most of the time because you're looking for a pro team to root for. You have a Michigan tie or you went to Michigan State. You have something there. Maybe it's just a team you saw on TV and it made you love college football, but like this whole idea of making it pro and stripping away what makes it unique and special, I think is just why? Like, I mean, just all for the sake of money. And then again, this is America. So yeah, I guess for a lot of people, $100 million is not enough. They need $200 million. And if a few schools die off football wise because of that, oh, well, at least we're richer. And that sucks, man. But that's also the way of this world, at least. And, I don't want to go too alarmist here, but yeah, if you're one of those smaller schools, just like some Big 12 schools a year ago had to go, holy crap, like what is our entire future now? There's a lot of schools feeling that way, and it sucks, and we know that feeling.
Here's the chat of the day, and Woody, you just took my entire soul and just grabbed it out of my heart because of what you said. But at the same time, thank you for what you say. You guys do a great job, like your show. I'm an OU fan, but Baylor's a good university. The old man does have a Biden moment at times. Paul, would he kill me? Just take me now.
Look, I mean...
No, he's right. I mean,
did you not stab yourself in the hand last week?
Yeah, I do. That's still.
I mean, that's kind of like falling off your bike.
But yeah, I do.
It's like falling off your bike while you're not riding the bike.
This is not all there anymore. It's just the way it is. The Wild Wild West Super Conferences. Golly, by the time I even go to read it, it's gone because the chat room is going crazy. But we appreciate it. I was going to try to find where it said college sports never been about college sports. It's always been about the money.
Yes and no. I mean, I think that, yeah, mostly you're correct in that. And I'm not saying for one single second that, this wasn't a long time coming or a rude awakening that was needed. But I think when you're talking about the bigger schools, then, yeah, that's even more true. But, man, not every school out there is making money. Not every AD out there is making $1 million+. There's a lot, the majority, in fact, that are losing money, that aren't making $1 million, and that are having to go play and get their heads kicked in by Alabama, some weekend in September for a measly $1 million to keep their program floating. So it's not all about the money for a lot of the people involved in college sports. And quite frankly, if all these schools were to break away and do the NFC, AFC, NFL wannabe thing that, I guess would be a glorified, minor league or whatever, there will still be some college sports. It will just be wildly different from this, colored waterfalls and Mercedes for every quarterback and, all this other stuff that some of these big schools are doing. There are people in college athletics who really do truly believe, and it's not just lip service, in the academic part and the life part of college athletics. And there will be some people that keep that alive. It just may not get as much attention on ESPN, but it will be kept alive by some people, and it needs to be, because that is still important in the long run. It's not all about money, even though that's what everything's about in the long run.
Craig, and I think an important distinction to make is, why do most college athletic departments lose money? Because it was not set up to make money from the beginning. So from the beginning of it, it's not like they started an airline and they were trying to make money by having more flights. Like, college athletics from its inception, which is a long time ago, was not set up to make money. It was not a for-profit thing. Then all of a sudden it started to, and everybody's trying to figure out how to get in on the game. But there are schools even within the big power conferences that, even though they get that big check, it's not really.
You brought that up yesterday, didn't you?
Yeah.
Phil says, should schools lose their nonprofit status?
Well, I mean, the problem is that there's not that many that are for profit. Even like I'm saying, there's schools in the Big Ten and the SEC that have this big television money coming in that still doesn't technically make them in the black, like everybody else is.
Hayden on the chat says that San Diego State gets an invite to the Pac-12 within the next 5 years. Hayden, and I know you've been going back and forth about the Big 12 football this season. That's been great, but we don't know what the hell is going to be going on. And if there is even a Pac-12 in 5 years, or what will be of college football at that particular time.
None of us, I'll say this, Hayden, and I know there's a rabid fan base for San Diego State out there. We've heard all the arguments, the stadium and all that, the location for why they should be in the Big 12, and we've talked about that quite a bit. But who had today predicted? I mean, who had USC and UCLA joining the Big Ten? I mean, we definitely talked about it over the last year and multiple times. Just the grand idea and possibility of even with the alliance. If you remember, I brought this up more than a few times about the Pac-12 move and all of that, and it was months and months ago, and just felt like it kind of died off. But, nobody saw OU and Texas coming. Nobody saw today coming. So, I mean, if you can predict that, I mean, kudos to you. But, I mean, I have no idea, because if tonight all of a sudden we hear that Oregon and Washington are on their way to the Big Ten, then what is the Pac-12? I mean, what is it at that point? Are they going to even have a conference to invite San Diego State to? And, and if there's not some massive move, I mean, maybe even Oregon, Washington, or some other combination, ends up in the Big Ten by the end of Friday. Maybe the Pac-12, just like everybody was. I'm not going to, as somebody who was covering the Big 12 and heard everybody writing them off, they're dead, they're screwed, bye Baylor, bye Oklahoma State, bye everybody, Kansas is going to the Big Ten, all that was wrong. So I'm not going to sit here and say the Pac-12's for sure dead, but because they could always go, the San Diego State, the Armed Service Academy route, and do all of that and scoop up what they can, Boise State. But, man, with a TV contract lingering very soon and one that's coming up before the Big 12, this is disastrous news today for them. I mean, could not be worse.
The Big 12 had more of a cushion to fall on, and the Pac-12 doesn't.
First choice.
Yeah, exactly. And the Pac-12 doesn't.
We do need to catch up on a break, and I can't believe I'm the one that's saying that, but we almost really just need to go without them. And our sponsors who do help us with revenue and pay for what we do would even understand that's why they're a part of it as well. Thank you to all of you who have been a part of the chat room. We're not even done. It's 4:10. We're on till 6. Max Olson, theathletic.com, we're expecting him at 4:30, and we may just take this thing up until we all decide to fall asleep right here on the set, Sikkim 365 Radio and 365 Sports. I bet there are some people, if, in fact, USC and UCLA, some those in administration or maybe even those in some high places, even some donors, boosters, who are lighting a big fatty right now, big, nice cigars. If you like cigars like I do, like Jack does, Don Humidor and Coffee Beans in Waco. They have them in the Town West Shopping Center off Valley Mills in Waco. Arturo Fuente, Rocky Patel, Romeo and Julieta, Macanudo, Ashton, really good cigars. Churchill length or smaller. And then on top of that, they have CBD products if you need them. And it's one that can really help you out if you are one that feels like you're losing sleep because you can't fall asleep, tossing and turning. And hey, sometimes things are just maybe so bad in your life that no matter what, a lot of stress, that you're going to do that anyway. But they have a CBD product, used to be called Vita Dreams. They've changed kind of the manufacturer, but I take it at times, and you know what? Next thing you know, it's 4 o'clock in the morning or 6 o'clock in the morning, your alarm's going off. That's what they have. That's going to help you as well. Accessories of what you need, from humidors to torch lighters to the cutters for your cigars, and, of course, fresh tobacco as well. Don Humidor and Coffee Beans as well in the Town West Shopping Center off Valley Mills in Waco.
Payments for qualified buyers at 2.9% for 72 with 5,000 down, cash or trade. TTL Extra. See dealer for details. Step up your ride at Richard Carr's Summer Savings Event. Find summer savings like a 2018 GMC Sierra SLT, only $432 a month, or a 2017 Buick Encore for $183 a month, or GMC Acadia for only $280 a month. Our vehicles go through a 172-point inspection. We pay top dollar for your trade, and 100% approval is always our goal. Find your next car or truck today at Richard Carr.
At Richard Carr, we give you more.
At Ideal MRI, we feel blessed to be a part of the Waco community. We're a small family business right here in Central Texas, and our goal is to bring down the cost of healthcare while maintaining high quality. At times like this, the cost of healthcare has never been more important, and unfortunately, significant illnesses and injuries still occur. That's why Ideal MRI is open and here to serve you through the difficult time. We offer premium MRIs just like a hospital with state-of-the-art technology and specialists, but you'll pay less. sometimes thousands of dollars less, whether you're using insurance or not. At Ideal MRI, we accept most insurance and there are no hidden costs, even offering financing if that's needed. Everything included in the price, and you'll not get something as a surprise in the mail later on. If you need an MRI, ask your doctor about Ideal MRI. They'll know. You can schedule an appointment safely from home online in minutes at idealmri.com or give us a call, 833-IDEAL-MRI, idealmri.com.
It was broad daylight. I stepped into a gas station for 5 minutes to grab a snack, and just like that, my car was broken into. They made out like a bandit. My laptop, my phone, everything. I called my agent to see what could be done, and he restored my faith in humanity. My claim was processed so quickly, and I was able to recover my losses.
Stop by and see our agents at one of our 3 McLennan County locations.
Coverage and discounts are subject to qualifications and policy terms and may vary by situation.
Automatic Chef Canteen is a full-service micro-market vending and office coffee provider with state-of-the-art vending equipment, a wide variety of products, and offering custom-fitted micro-market vending office coffee solutions for your employee break room. You want a full break room solution and a workplace oasis? Well, Automatic Chef Canteen, locally owned and operated for over 50 years in Central Texas, also includes in-house mechanics on call 24/7 for fast, reliable service and maintenance. Automatic Chef Canteen, 6900 Imperial Drive in Waco, or online at automaticchefcanteen.com.
Did you know that Waco Regional Tennis and Fitness is a partner of the City of Waco? Did you know that we are open to the public? Waco Regional Tennis and Fitness offers day passes to the public for only $10 a day, and we offer money-saving memberships. Waco Regional Tennis and Fitness offers over 40 group exercise classes each week, including bar, yoga, boot camp, indoor cycling, and more. There are free weights, weight machines, TRX, rowing machines, stationary bikes, new treadmills, elliptical machines, and much more on the spacious weight room floor. Personal training available where you can be encouraged to grow. Sauna, whirlpool, tanning bed and kids club, 17 tennis courts, 8 pickleball courts, youth and adult tennis and pickleball lessons. Waco's premier experience where you can help your mind, body, and soul. Visit our website at wacotennis.com. Call us at 254-753-7675 or visit us next to Hawaiian Falls on Lakeshore Drive in Waco.
Welcome back to Sikkim 365 Radio.
3rd and goal. Here's Chapin into the end zone, and how about that swagger? Another touchdown pass for Chapin. Ben Sims on the receiving end of this one.
The 4 o'clock hour is sponsored by Boozer's Jewelers, the wedding ring store, specializing in custom jewelry and repair, all in-house.
Now, here's David Smoak, Paul Catalina, and Craig Smoak.
One text, and this is the most recent from the 214, and then we get to your phone calls. We have time for 3 or 4 calls right now. 254-339-1122. This is from the 214. I'd be curious to hear your thoughts, given the Big Ten SEC's interest in being minor leagues as far as based on pros. Do you think the Big 12 could position itself as the conference that preserves what people like about college sports, perhaps with a mission similar to the NCAA after the NCAA collapses? It could preserve things like traditional rivalries, players that aren't paid like pros, non-revenue sports, etc. I don't know. I don't know what's in that for them to be the UNICEF of college sports.
Well, I think
it's just you can't do that. I mean, what would benefit them for that?
I heard that differently. Actually caring still about academics. Yeah. What would benefit them? A ton of things. If they're not going to be a part of the new NFL party or whatever you want to call it, what else is their option? To be a third wheel in basically, if this whole SEC Big Ten idea comes together, which this is also just massive speculation, but with today's move and the Big Ten expanding their footprint, it looks like, and not being done, now you're covering the whole country. If you're those two conferences, for the most part, I mean, if you're going to go and let's say that's the scenario, they're going to go be the new NFL, whatever. Okay, that leaves a bunch of other people to do what? Just try to be the USFL of that group? or be the college sports group. That's how I read that. So, yeah, I mean, if you're the Big 12 and your whole new campaign really based on the reading the tea leaves is going to be, hey, we're the coast-to-coast conference. Like, we're America's conference in a way. You want to go out west, we got BYU and maybe some new teams as of, later on. You want to go out east, you got West Virginia. We got Midwest, let's go to Cincinnati, down south, etc. I mean, you kind of cover almost every base there. And I know for one thing, if it's based simply on Mack Rhodes' opinion, Baylor AD, they're not going to want to get rid of the athletics or the academics part of this. So if you believe in student athletes, even if those student athletes are employees or getting paid, then there's absolutely room for still caring about academics and still caring about the feel of college football, even if that feel's not exactly what it was, even 2 years ago.
Joseph, Super Chat, $20. Thank you very much. It's a very interesting question, and we'll try to answer it, but we got to get the calls. We want to get the calls. We asked for the calls, and here we go.
All right, let's go to Jeff in Mexico. Jeff, thanks for your call.
Hey, roll tide, guys.
Roll tide.
Hey, I just hope for you guys that today's news brings you guys as many new viewers as last year when Oklahoma and Texas came over to the SEC. You guys are the best show going. It's the best 3-hour talk show on sports anywhere. Thanks for the great work you guys do, guys.
Jeff, we hope you're right.
Thanks, Jeff.
And it seemed like today that the numbers, have expanded. We appreciate that. Do you have anything in particular about today's news you want to share?
I think he's gone.
Okay.
Yeah, I think he's just saying what's...
there he goes. There he goes.
I wonder if Lincoln Riley is so excited about going to the Big Ten, seeing that he kind of left Oklahoma when they were going to the SEC.
He is the guy that I've seen. I mean, he's the guy that if I could really, if we could pry open his brain and just pull out whatever we wanted to. I mean, I'm sure there's a million ways you could go, but how much did you know when you took that USC job? Did you know this was going to happen?
Because I don't
Did you know this was going to happen, Lincoln Riley?
Well, I mean, it's kind of a similar situation when Steve Sarkisian took the Texas job. How much did they tell him about that? And from what we know is that he probably didn't really know all that much because they had to keep it to about 4 or 5 people that knew about the thing altogether. So,
and plus, both jobs, you could argue it doesn't really matter where they are, but given the kind of talk around Lincoln Riley's decision and why he chose where he chose, yes, all of a sudden going and joining Ohio State and Michigan State and Michigan and Penn State and so on. I don't know if that's exactly what he was looking for. But, yeah, I would be fascinated to know what he knew when he took the USC job and if he had any inkling, like Sark, about the SEC, if he had any inkling, Riley, about this move that's looking like it's going to happen. And I just saw 2 Dennis Dodd, remaining Pac-12 ADs. What a world, right? What a world. Remaining Pac-12 ADs and presidents will meet later today via phone to discuss next steps. That's not surprising, of course, but just passing that along.
Hey, here's one note, then another call from the 213. By the way, guys, perfect example, even with USC and UCLA bringing the LA market, so to speak. And it does as far as the way maybe TV executives can be wowed by that. Perfect example right now in LA, 570 LA, in AM in LA. What are they talking about?
Freddie Freeman.
Not a word about, nothing about USC and UCLA. The Durant requesting a trade, maybe to Sacramento. The Dodgers. Nobody cares about the Pac-12 in this city.
Man, that's wild.
And that is interesting. That doesn't mean that still LA is not a part of any kind of a TV mix. Rodney Peete, former USC quarterback, he says he thinks this is set up with the 2 super conferences. We've been told that. Fox runs the Big Ten Conference, ESPN with the SEC, 40, 50 teams. Big Ten will take more. SEC will take more. Leftovers will just whoever they are. And so that's kind of at least we've heard that scenario, but thank you to the 213.
For the super conferences to work, it also kind of goes against the whole, we want as much inventory as possible. So you're telling me they're going to have less teams and less conferences to cover? That doesn't make any sense whatsoever. So that's why I'm a little bit hesitant on going all in on, it's just going to be the Big Ten and the Pac-12. But Ross Dellinger, Big Ten president, set to vote to accept application of membership from UCLA and USC this evening.
254-339-1122. Craig's monitoring what's going on with that particular feed with all the hashtags and whatever else is happening. Paul's got the calls. Paul?
All right, Diane, you are on Sikkim 365 Radio. Thanks for your call.
Good afternoon, gentlemen. Craig, you set me up again today.
Oh,
you
awesome.
wanted to know, did Lake and Riley know? I want to know, did Kim know? Anyway, you guys are killing it today. Chaos is ensuing and people are here for it. That chat room is crazy. And you know what? Hayden's wrong. So that's all I got, guys. Have a great day.
Diane,
Bye.
oh my God, from day one, thank you so much.
Yes, did Kim Mulkey know when she made the move to LSU?
She did. She knew.
Yeah,
she did.
Yeah, of course. All right, we got three more we're going to take in rapid succession.
Vernon, how can LA radio not be talking about this? Vernon, I'm just reporting from one of the guys that's chat.
No, he's right, though. I mean, how? I mean, Freddie Freeman's story is interesting, but come on, man. This is massive.
Okay, I'll tell you this, and the three of us experienced it. When this happened last year, was Dallas radio talking about it? No, they called us.
And you got Kevin Durant thing. You can talk about that for
but it's
anytime you want to.
in the NBA.
I get it, but
so
come on, man.
It's a pro sports town.
All right, let's go to Patrick in Maryland. Patrick, thanks for your call.
Hi, good afternoon. I just wanted to ask you guys. My buddy and I were talking about, the end goal of this whole super conference thing, and we were discussing how maybe with it becoming a kind of a minor league, could we even maybe see college football teams merge with the NFL to make like a 60-team NFL? You have like Alabama versus the Patriots.
Nope.
USC versus the Giants. Do you ever see that happening?
No. You could take the worst NFL team, and there are plenty, and play the very best, elite, greatest college football team ever. What would the score be?
Well, look, and
it would not be
depends
close.
on the year.
One thing to remember, that Alabama at its best still has a bunch of 19-year-olds, as where the Browns at their worst have a bunch of 27-year-olds.
Have a 34-year-old that has been playing for 12 years and is,
It's a fair question, and it's something that's fun to kind of think that way. But it's just like college basketball teams. One of our guests yesterday said that Baylor 2021 would be able to win games against NBA teams. I even kind of winced a little bit with that because there are pros.
I think he said hang in.
Yeah, okay, hang in. Maybe that's it. But I think the worst team, let's say the worst team in the NFL played Alabama, Georgia, whatever, they would smoke them.
Yeah. All right.
I don't know. I think of the Jaguars sometimes, and I just kind of want. I mean, again, it would depend on the year and who the worst team in the league is. But to answer your question, no. I mean, the closest that would come would be like a minor league of some sorts, but I just don't know what would be in that for the NFL because the way it's set up right now, they get whoever they want from wherever they want, and they get the best of the best. So why would you limit that?
And they print money.
And so I mean, it's a fun thought, but I think this is more of just they're going to try to be their. If that's the way that it's going, like super conferences, it's going to try to be its own whole thing that eventually leads to the NFL, but its own unique thing. Yeah.
All right, Steven in Mississippi, thanks for your call.
Hey, quick thought. It's my understanding that if Notre Dame or any of the ACC schools leave before their granted rights are up, or Notre Dame joins another conference, it's $300 million to get out of that deal. And second thing, looking at the Pac-12 situation now, Washington and Oregon have got to be right around the corner. Doesn't it look like taking Cincinnati and Central Florida was kind of a panic move there?
Well,
it was necessary.
It's a legitimate question.
Yeah, it's a fair question.
It's a hypothetical that it's legitimate. It's a legitimate question. If you could trade those two, with all due respect, we've created a lot of great fan bases in the last year. We know the answer to that, but it's happened, and it's. I'm not going to be one of those that starts to look down at anybody that's a part of the conference that we cover and or who they have added at the time that was necessary and only thing that was available.
It's an interesting thought because if you had the benefit of, knowing exactly what was going to happen at this time, when that happened a year ago, then you would have probably sat on your hands a little bit longer, maybe been a bit more patient and, maybe done things a little bit differently, but that wasn't the scenario. The scenario was they had to make a move and had to do what they could to stay alive when they did. Because if they didn't, there were other schools that were going to be jumping off left and right the moment they had an opportunity to do. Now, how many of those teams would have had an opportunity? I know a lot of them talked a big game, Kansas to the Big Ten, but we know that's total BS. Like, that's just all that's hopefulness. That's dreams on Twitter. But, without the benefit of being able to see the future, they made the move they had to make when they made it. And, those schools got in at the right time, and I think the Big 12 made the right move. So you can't second guess
and
that.
still could get somebody later on.
Notre Dame could take football for a small fee, but there's no grant of rights bound for them.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah,
we have to
they're
hit Max
independent.
Olson on time. Yeah, exactly. Paul?
Yeah. All right.
I think he's talking about ACC, though. If the other teams want to leave, like that's going to be really difficult for that to happen.
It's just like Texas and OU, and except longer because of 2037.
Right. Let me do a little housekeeping on it here. We're going to take Chris. I'm going to call Max,
Right, you go.
and then we'll skip break 4. Garrett,
All right,
okay?
thanks, sounds good.
All right. Chris in Missouri, thanks for your call.
Hey, guys, what a great day for the Big 12. Last year, the Big 12 wasn't even sure it was still going to be around. Now, with UCLA and USC going to the Big 10, it really puts a dagger in the heart of the Pac-12. I think Stanford and Oregon are going to have to go next to the Big 12, which means the Big 12 has their pick of the litter of all the teams that are left. You know, Colorado, Utah, Arizona, and Arizona State make sense. I don't know if Washington State would make sense for the Big 12, but amazing day for the Big 12. Thanks.
Thank you, Chris. Appreciate your call. We appreciate that very much for you being a part of it. The calls we've just taken on Sikkim 365 Radio, 365 Sports.
Yeah, you said Oregon and Stanford there. I think I'd be more looking at, and I'm not these people involved, obviously, but I would say Oregon and Washington would be the two big brands that would probably jump off first. And then Stanford would be interesting because, you know, what are those heavily academic schools out in the Pac-12 thinking right now? Like, how much are they wanting to still be in the NIL battle and all that? And Stanford would be one of those top choices that you really wonder, like, how much do they want to keep wading in these types of college football waters? You know, like, this is not their mission. This is not what they're necessarily about, is keeping up with the Joneses. They're about the academic side more than anything. So, yeah, I think Washington would be a better candidate. But I do think, to your point, it is a great day for the Big 12 in theory, but let's see what else happens first.
Yeah, it's now your Pac-12 teams are the ones looking around, and how much is left of the people that were in the room. Max Olson, go-to senior editor and college football writer for theathletic.com, covers college football. Max, just wait a day, and what the hell happens next?
Fellas, I really do not have time for this, so let's get through it.
Yeah, well, and I was expecting, I really was like, hey, so Max, what, in your opinion, what's?
I'm just messing with you. It's just, you know, hey, one of those days, right?
Yeah,
you can't. I'm one of those people that's not very good about taking vacation, and I really want to, like, next year, I need to just like go out of the country for a month and just come back and, you know, not even just worry about this stuff. You know,
every time Mac Rhodes takes a vacation, all hell breaks loose in certain ways, whether it's a story involving Baylor or whatever. Max, what's next? What is next other than UCLA and USC, in your opinion?
Yeah, man, where to begin? I think obviously you probably start with the Big Ten and just say, are they done? Or what's the sort of immediate end game for them? Is it, making them run at Notre Dame? Is it trying to add, Oregon or Washington or more Pac-12 members? Is it, do they see, schools in the Big 12 as potential targets? So you really don't know, like, what's the number the Big Ten's trying to get to here? And then certainly, like, what's the SEC response to this? Is the SEC now more interested in making moves themselves? But, there's sort of that larger picture of, obviously you see a lot of people speculating about, really where is this whole thing headed, really, between these two conferences that are going to be making just insane money here on their TV deals. But I do think this is an opportunity that the Big 12, needs to embrace, and it's not ideal timing, obviously, to go through a commissioner transition right now is really not great. But this is the chance for the Big 12 to play offense and to go add, to go take some of these Pac-12 schools. And I think if they did that, it sort of checks all the boxes for the Big 12 in terms of strengthening their position. And but you certainly wonder, are they actually in a position right now to go do those things?
So does Brett Yormark pretty much have one job when he gets there, is get 4 more schools?
I mean, Brett Yormark's first job is moving up his start date, because I don't think he can wait till August 1.
It's a great point.
I think that I that's where, you in hindsight, you'd say, did Lawrence Kuvanek and the Big 12 board make the right call in April by saying now's the right time to move on from Bob Bowlesby, when obviously he was willing to see this thing through here for a few more years. So certainly they moved the search process along as fast as they could. But now Brett Yormark is in this position that George Kliavkoff was kind of in last summer, where, okay, you just got here, you're just getting settled in. There's a lot you kind of don't know still about this league. There's a lot to learn here. over the next year, are you ready to make really defining long-term decisions right now about expansion? I think that's the big question mark there. And he probably will need Bob Bowlesby as a consultant on all of this stuff if they're going to go in that direction. But, certainly the Big 12 has an opportunity here. And I don't doubt that, I think Arizona State is a popular place to start that discussion. I wonder if it makes even more sense to talk about, adding Colorado and Utah to that conversation. But, certainly the question is, can the Big 12 board, can they build consensus and get moving in that direction if they think that's the thing to do? Obviously, last summer you saw when the Pac-12 ironically decided not to expand, Bob Bowlesby was able to capitalize on that moment and build consensus and momentum to go very quickly add the 4 new members. So, can the Big 12 do that again while they, bring in a new boss?
Max, what was your favorite memory or moment from the Alliance?
It wasn't even really like around long enough to print out merch and stuff, right? Like I wish there was a T-shirt you could buy. I think it was so we all remember the Zoom press conference they had with like the Photoshop background they made of the 3 conferences. I think it was really that moment that day when we all understood like where how this was going to go, when they were like, no, we didn't sign anything. We looked each other in the eyes. We shook hands. We trust each other. I think when you knew that there was nothing actually in writing about what they were doing to work together, you knew someday there were probably someday somebody was eventually going to have to stab somebody in the back, and to see it happen within a year is it's pretty wild.
That's going to be one of the more fascinating parts of whatever books are written about this time period, of all the negotiations that have gone on in the dark over the last year, and probably even farther back than that. When you just think about Oklahoma and Texas, and clearly some schools involved in the Alliance were doing the same thing while forming the Alliance. But Max, we were just talking about a second ago. Do you think Lincoln Riley had any idea of the long-term plans when he joined USC?
Freaking 2 times in 12 months, guys. Like, is someone going to run these things by Lincoln Riley when he's thinking, I have to wonder. Yeah, I really have to wonder, sort of when did USC know they were doing this and all that. It's so interesting. It really is. And they just had their number 2 at their athletic department. He just left basically to go join the Detroit Lions. So I wonder if he knew this was coming and they got this done before he left or whatever. But I'm sure Lincoln Riley probably had more of a heads up this time. Probably not in December when he took the job. Who knows? But man, like that it really is wild. You guys remember like when this move happened and he made that decision, it was hailed as this is incredible for the future of the Pac-12. This guy's going to save the Pac-12, and he's not going to be in it very long.
Max, technically the Alliance didn't lie. The Big Ten was going to schedule some games with USC and UCLA just in their own conference.
Well, yeah. So there's going to be the scheduling piece of that is going to be pretty funny to see, how do they work out the time zone issue that they suddenly have? Who's going to be playing the 9 a.m. games basically. And, how many times do, USC and UCLA have to go out to Rutgers and Maryland and stuff like that. There's definitely that part of it. But honestly, guys, the thing that's kind of a bummer is obviously the geography part of this, that's been out the window for quite a while. Right. But that there's still a part of that, I don't know. Does it bum you guys out at all? The idea that we're just sort of, continuing to kind of bastardize this in terms of the local and regional rivalries and stuff like that.
For sure. It's been that way for a while, but it's now in warp speed.
But complaining about it, you get just drowned out by, well, you don't want players to get money and stuff, just these random cries of, you don't care about this or that. And it's like, no, I care about all that stuff too, or I don't care what happens as far as that goes. But yeah, part of me does miss the way college football was, or at least it appears it was at one point in time.
Yeah, for sure.
So do you think in any way this move, well, one, it's a reaction to Texas OU and the SEC, but do you think in any way that this move could ramp up the exit time for Texas and Oklahoma?
I don't know that these are going to be connected in that way. I guess that's really, really a question of it's just how many more moves are still to come here. Certainly, if the SEC and Big Ten decided that they wanted to target Big 12 members and add a bunch of them and kind of destroy the conference, then then I suppose there's kind of that question of, well, what grant of rights if everyone's leaving, that kind of thing. But no, I don't think that's going to necessarily expedite it. I do think that but certainly the one, like, I'm fascinated to know, like, what is George Kliavkoff doing today? Like, what is the next move for him? But I'm sure you can ask the same thing of Greg Sankey. I mean, how does he see this all playing out? Does he look at his move as trying to take, schools from the ACC, which has that grant of rights through 2036? Or does he, kind of, if they're all going to keep growing, and at this point in time, it'd be naive to assume the Big Ten and the SEC are done expanding. What's the move for the SEC?
Yeah. Well, we brought up the scenario.
The ACC does complicate that, doesn't it? That long grant of rights, that does complicate matters a little bit. Because, the obvious would be like, how Twitter is. Go grab FSU and Clemson. But that obviously would be a hefty price tag. Right.
Oh, people definitely, give in to talking about this stuff like it's fantasy football at this point, and that's, in some ways, that's kind of what it feels like, too. I get that.
And look,
it's turned into that in some ways, yeah.
I'll just say, if Florida State's going to suck, let's suck and make money.
Yeah, there you go.
That's a Nebraska
More money,
fan. Yeah.
yes.
Max, you go ahead, Craig. You follow up. I was going to get to your mark. Go ahead.
Well, no, that's what I was going to ask about as well, Max.
Hey, by the way, did you guys see that KD requested a trade? Like, there's all sorts of stuff that's probably happened today.
Yeah.
That, like, I'm not even aware of because I just really have not been staring at Twitter all day.
Speaking of that, we had someone who watches us say that in L.A. on radio, in sports talk radio in L.A., it's all about Durant and requesting a trade because of the NBA free agency thing that's about to start, and may not even have used USC and UCLA in a sentence, which is just nuts. But
my goodness.
Max, Brett Yormark. I mean, that story was hot for, I guess, a few hours until this all popped off. But were you like everybody else that had to do some digging and figure out who exactly he was and why this was the choice? Because it did seem pretty out of nowhere, the hire of Brett Yormark.
On Sunday night when this leaked out by Sports Illustrated, certainly I was one of the people who was going to Google and looking up who this guy is, and I texted with a few ADs who were saying the same thing. Because even by Sunday night, like, they had not really been told by their presidents this is where it was going. And the interesting thing with that too is, over the course of the search, I heard a few names that were tied to the search. I didn't go out and report them, but I heard a few names of these people are in the mix and getting interviews and stuff. But ultimately, the finalists for that job are people I had not heard of, or at least had not heard they were involved with the Big 12. So it did seem like that outcome was pretty unexpected. But from folks I've talked to, it sounds like he was, Brett Yormark was by far the most impressive person they talked to. I think he really blew away the board with just his, really high energy personality, with all the ideas that he brought to the table. I think there's a real belief that, they've got a guy who's 30 plus years of pro sports experience is really going to fit. And I think they also feel like they need a deal maker right now. They need a businessman in charge, because let's be honest, at some point you do have to just sort of concede that this is becoming more professionalized, and that, as much as there is value in having people that have a lot of on-campus experience, as we've seen by some of these recent commissioner hires, in some ways you're kind of acknowledging, okay, we need to be prepared for the reality that this is all heading off in a direction that is all very new, but also in a lot of ways more like pro sports.
Max, if you could put the dream scenario, if you were the Big 12, let's say that there is the opportunity to add, would it be obvious that you would want, because Oregon and Washington are going to end up in the Big 10, you would think. Would it be Utah?
If not, those are two of the top two,
Yeah, no, that would be the obvious. But if in fact they were able to add the two schools out of Arizona, and then Utah and whoever, it won't be Cal and Stanford, but if they could add those four teams, how much does that help, if at all?
Yeah, it's a good question. I mean, will you make $100 million a year like the Big Ten and the SEC? No, obviously not. But I think in terms of strengthening, I think really I think you think back to last summer, and when they added the four schools they did, you heard people saying, well, this might not be over. And the reason for that is not that necessarily that people were sort of on the fence about Memphis or SMU or other schools. I think the reason for that thinking, and I think even Mike Gundy came out and said it, was probably a belief that, as you approach these TV talks, if there were schools out there that the TV consultants were telling you, hey, you should go get those guys and you'll make way more money, then they're going to do it. I mean, as we saw today, by the shocking news today, this is all driven by money, and this is all driven by the distribution from year to year and all that. And so, I do think if the Big 12 can add those Power 5 schools to their league and weaken the Pac-12 in the process, then the Big 12 is going to make more money. And will it be a ton more money? I have no idea. But certainly right now, you want to make as much as the Pac-12 and ACC. And if you can, make some moves where you're making more than them, then that's better than where you were.
Thank you, buddy. Appreciate your help, and thanks for being a part of the show on a day like today.
Did anything break while we were talking? Anything else?
There was a Texas.
That's the thing I'm always afraid of.
I'm sure Texas.
I started looking through headlines just a second ago. It's funny you mentioned that, and I was like, oh wow, Calvin Simpson Hunt, Texas highest commit, flipped to Ohio State. I had no idea because we've been following this story, and there's the Kevin Durant thing and the Freddie Freeman thing, and it's wild. It's absolutely wild.
And it looks like the Big Ten board is getting this done tonight too. So it's just gotta keep your head on a swivel. This stuff is moving real fast, fellas.
We know how much you mean to us by being on when you are. I want to tell you the job you did with Nicole and I think Fortuna, and the article you wrote about Brett Yarmark. It really kind of helped put some things in perspective for me and give me a little bit more background and for others as well. So great job. It's worth the subscription to theathletic.com. Max, thank you.
Hey, I'm glad you guys saw that in the 12 hours that it mattered. I appreciate that.
God, I don't think it was 12. Max Olson, theathletic.com. We're going to blow out off the radar, Craig.
Yeah, I don't care at this point. This is way more interesting. And like I just threw one of the stories out there that would have been in there, but I did see that within the last half hour or so that Calvin Simpson Hunt, an incredibly talented cornerback out of Waxahachie, had been committed to Texas Tech for quite some time and was really kind of the crown jewel or one of the jewels of the class, so to speak, for Texas Tech. If you follow the kind of the composite rankings on 247, and I know there's On 3 and Rivals and all of that, but I know at one point 247 in their composite for the 2023 class had Tech at number 1, number 2. It's kind of dependent on what day that you looked at that, and a large part of that had to do with 247's formula, where if you do have more commits, it does weigh heavier. So you knew that wasn't going to last necessarily. But what was interesting was, they also had that class high, not only because of the numbers, but because of guys like Calvin Simpson Hunt. And then Ohio State came calling, much like they've come calling for Austin Novosad, Baylor's quarterback commit. And there was some talk about him, Simpson Hunt flipping. And in fact, he has flipped, it looks like, within the last hour or so. So big get for the Buckeyes, a loss for Tech. I'm sure they'll manage fine. But, that was of interest.
And I want to throw this in there, and we got to get back to your calls and chat. Jalen Brunson. That news signs intent. This is from the NBA. Shams intends to sign a 4-year, nearly $110 million deal. I thought I saw that he was going to meet with Cuban and Jason Kidd or whatever, but that's been kind of out there. And from Pro Football Talk, Deshaun Watson.
Leaving Luka to go play for the Knicks. Come on, man.
Deshaun Watson hearing has ended. Knowledge of the proceedings from a source. NFL interviewed 12 alleged victims. At the hearing, focused on 5 of the women making allegations against Watson. The case presented by the NFL included no evidence of violence, threat, force, or coercion by Deshaun Watson. The NFL admitted that the punishment it seeks, indefinite suspension, at least a year, is unprecedented. And so they will get to, that's going to be drawn out. We know that for quite some time. And that thing, they just put up a story on ProFootballTalk.com if you're interested. Thank you to nearly 1,700 at one point that we're watching today. So much to get to. We can't even get to all the chat, but we know it's there. We're watching it. Thank you. You all go back and forth, and we appreciate it. Sikkim 365 Radio, 365 Sports will be up until 6 today. And so, okay, here we go. Getting back to some of the comments, text messages, and more on the UCLA and USC UCLA bolting, not yet official, but just a matter of time for the Big 12. And I've seen this a lot in the chat room and also this text, and I want to Stanford and Cal. I don't want to say I would give up a body part, But there is no way I could ever see, no matter the situation, that they would ever want to be a part of the Big 12 and or a fit. And they just won't ever be a part of it. They'll do their own thing, and like we've even said, they might even just say, hell, let's go independent. Or maybe they'll be a part of another wave to the Big 10. We'll see.
Yeah, we got to get back on call-in, guys, real quick. That was my fault. I took us off because I didn't think we were going back.
254-339-1122, 254-339-1122.
Hold on, there was an interesting text earlier I wanted to get to, and there's just so many I can't find it. Yeah, let's just go on about your business, I thought. Here it is. From the 979, the possibility that we may come out of this Utah and BYU being a Big 12 conference game is wild.
It's not out of the question.
Yeah.
I mean, how did BYU fans feel about that? I mean, I'd love to know. BYU fans out there, how would you feel about being conference mates with Utah? I know that Utah got their big ha-ha moment, joining the Pac-12 and being able to say that they were in a power conference, and then here comes BYU. And now they're going to be in a power conference, and I'm sure there was a lot of trash talking back and forth between the two, and I know there was. I saw some of it this time last year when all that was going on. But yeah, now Utah suddenly gone from ha-ha, the kid pointing and laughing, to, oh, now we're a little bit more eye-to-eye, but ha-ha still. And now it's, well, maybe moving in next door might be on the cards or in the cards for Utah. Who knows? But, yeah, I mean, I think – all the speculation's fun, but till we see what the end goal is for the Big Ten or for the SEC, and let's make clear, whatever the future of college football looks like, as far as right now and determining that future, they are the two that are calling the shots. How much more do they want to chew on and bite off from others before they're done and satisfied and full, and what's left over from that?
All right, so hey, Ryan Abraham, who covers Southern Cal, will join us at 5:30 on this show, 5:30 Central Time. Ryan Abraham, that's a great get for us and you, our audience on the USC UCLA story.
We got a couple calls, but I do want to leave. Craig, you asked Ben Mora, who I assume is a BYU fan, says yes, Utah. Remick Johnson has a Utah logo, says Utah would be good in the Big 12.
I think they fit. I do. I don't know about all the other stuff, but I think their style fits as well.
Yeah, I'd be happy to welcome Utah into the Big 12. I mean, I'm just asking BYU fans what you think, but in general, yeah.
Avery Cope, I'm a BYU fan. I'd love to have Utah back. B. Smith, BYU fan here, no Utah. So. So that there. Oh no, Ben Moore is he says he's a UH Cougs. He said go Cougs, and then he had to say UH because again, they're both Cougars. So
right.
There's certainly a split on it. I'm sure it's probably a little bit maybe on a smaller scale of how if you asked A&M and Texas fans how you really feel about it. Really feel about it.
Oh no, because
would you want to play the game again? There'll be some they'll say no, we're done with them. We divorced them. Yeah. I hate that they're coming back. But in your heart of hearts, you're like, I want the fight song to make sense again.
I think with A&M though, it's still the fact that they thought they had gotten away the last decade, and then all of a sudden here comes your neighbor that you don't like. And they don't like you.
You finally got all these advantages that you've been wanting for, your entire history, and they've all been completely wiped out by the fact that all the advantages are now going to be the same advantages that the school that you hated has.
And we've seen it already kick in.
Everything that you had has basically been wiped out. And I would actually, when it came to the Texas thing, y'all are kind of bouncing around. It made me forget. Oh, yeah, I'm very curious to see how this all works out with Oklahoma, because I'm not completely sold on them just having the same levels of success. And I know that some people have said, for example, with, Missouri joining the SEC years and years ago, it's like, yeah, but you might not have so much success, but it's the money part, right? We all hear about how great the money is. And the money is great. And, you could certainly use the money. But you know who they partnered with on this move, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you basically trusted the snake to secure your future, and I'm still not fully convinced that there's not some part of Texas that knew what they were doing when they brought Oklahoma along, that they probably could have moved on their own, but in part needed Oklahoma to fully make the move make sense, and knew by doing so that not only were they strengthening themselves, but were able to convince Oklahoma they were strengthening them, even though they're really undermining them ultimately. And I know that's a more long game, and that's more of a conspiracy theory, but that is a part of all of this movement and all the stuff that's going on that's going to be overlooked because now we're focusing on all the new stuff. But that is something that I was thinking about last night.
I think I get what you're saying, and I'm telling you from day one, back when all hell broke loose at the end of July, and soon after that, when I was able to talk to someone who was very good for us, and yes, we still had to confirm everything, that we were ahead of the curve on the expansion in the Big 12 when all of them made sense, that I'm not so sure that even though Texas was known as being the bad guy, that Oklahoma's not the one that was the guy that was drunk at the bar, threw the first punch, passed out, and the other guy got all the beating.
No, I think they were definitely more involved than they got blamed for. And Texas took the brunt of it. Yeah, that was BS. I mean, they deserved at least 50% credit for the move and 50% blame for the move and all that. But I know that's more big picture, whatever. But yeah, I mean, that's dominoes that started to fall, and now dominoes are falling again a year later, and they're massive dominoes, and it's just going to be really interesting to see what tomorrow looks like. Because by tonight, I mean, the move could be done for USC and UCLA. I mean, they're voting on that bad boy. So by tomorrow morning, that could be done. And then it's like what happens over the course of this weekend, much less what happens, ultimately when OU and Texas join the SEC, which is still like a couple years away at this point. So it's just fascinating times, and I also know for a lot of people out there, very frustrating times. I know Pac-12 fans, we could be total D-heads and be like a lot of other people were about a year ago when the Big 12 was falling apart and tell you ha-ha and point at you and laugh, because I remember some of those people. Not going to do that. I know today sucks for a lot of fans out there, especially the fans who don't know what the future looks like. That's how Baylor fans felt. That's how TCU fans felt. That's how a lot of teams other than OU and Texas felt. So I'm sure there's a lot of Big 12 fans that feel your pain. But hopefully everybody finds good landing spots, and we'll see how the Pac-12 reacts. But, the Big 12 and the timing from last year, we had the caller of like, well, what if they would have known? Well, that's a whole like what if that just is not even possible to really rationalize it or even begin to unpack, because it's just that's not what happened. I mean, but the fact that timing was what it was, imagine the shoe being reversed. Had the Pac-12 had this happen a year ago, and then all of a sudden today we're hearing about Texas and OU leaving, the Big 12 would be totally screwed.
I'm glad you brought that up, because somebody asked this question, and I don't think it is. My answer is no, but it's a monster. When I saw that today, I'm like, oh, my God. It's not in any way, in my opinion, as big as it is. It's still not the shoe that dropped when Texas and Oklahoma's story was broken by Brent Zerneman. To me, that was the opening salvo, but it was a nuclear one. This one's big, but it's not like what it was a year ago.
Yeah, real quick, we're having a bit of a software issue on the phones. So if you're trying to call in, we're having a software issue.
Well, then just please text us if you can, and we'll try to get to those as best we can.
We are going to, and it's college football related, the Elite 11 quarterback competition that's going on right now out in where is that? God, I just went blank on where they're having that. With Austin Novosad, who's a commitment to Baylor, and Arnold from Denton Guyer committed to OU, among others, Alabama, Malachi Nelson, USC. We're going to have one of the On3 Sports recruiting guys who's going to join us. Spiegelman is going to join us, who's out there as they go into the last day of the Elite 11. He'll join us around 5:10 today in about 15 minutes.
It's in Oregon.
Yeah. Paul, you want to break?
Yeah, we can do it now.
Do a break here, and we'll try to also patch that up as well. Hey, we love you, man. We appreciate your feedback and time. Spread the word. Hit the like button. If you want to do a super chat, you don't have to, but we'd appreciate it. Sikkim 365 Radio and 365 Sports.
I hate my job, but I don't mind getting up in the morning. I dread each day, but I can't wait to get out of bed. You ask me why, and what I'll say to you is true. Well, you can get breakfast tacos at Rudy's Barbecue. Scrambled eggs and brisket, they ain't fooling around. Sausage wrap, son, they're the best in town. Barbecue for breakfast, yes, it's true. Put a smile on your morning at Rudy's Barbecue. Next in line.
The secret to living your best life is pizza, obviously. Golden crust made from scratch, 3 fresh signature cheeses, and the toppings, crispy Old World pepperoni, savory Italian sausage, bacon. That's called a dream team. Find everything you need to live your best life and more at Marco's Pizza. Owner Bob Mock has been delivering pizza since 2001 and is the proud owner of 4 locations in Waco, Belmead, China Spring, Woodway, and soon to be open in Robinson. Marco's. Pizza lovers get it.
Brad Boozer, Boozer's Jeweler, joins us on Sikkim 365 Radio. This is a great time for your business.
Exactly. And one other thing we do that a lot of people don't know is we buy jewelry, heirloom pieces, gold, silver bars, gold bullion, watches, anything you may have that you want to. If you don't want to use it and remake something like I did in a state yesterday and I looked at 35 pieces, well, they're probably going to sell me back 30 because it's something they're not going to wear, nothing to use. So if you're looking to get a few bucks or to sell something or something you just don't wear anymore, I make my wife go through her jewelry box about every 6 to 8 months, and the things that she doesn't wear on a daily basis, this sounds horrible, but I take away from her and then I'll put in my estate counter, but then that gives me the chance to rebuy her something new moving forward. Instead of looking down 20 years down the road and you have 300 pieces of jewelry, it's something to refresh and make her buy something new along the way.
You want to know why they're successful? Brad Boozer, the owner of Boozer's Jewelers on the corner of Valley Mills and Lake Air in Waco.
From the first workout to the last practice, sports is an incredible and rewarding challenge. Hi, everyone. This is Dan Ingham with the First National Bank of Central Texas, and we're proud to support each athlete, every parent, and our educators. From families, small businesses, to the biggest industry, we're here to help. With remarkable products like mortgage lending, we've got banking ideas that fuel big dreams. The First National Bank of Central Texas. Familiar faces making local decisions.
Member FDIC, Equal Housing Lender.
You want to know why Stonewood Dental is so successful? Listen to what happy customers have to say.
It's pleasant. It's different than any other dentist office. I really feel like they care. And it's not that you're here for 2 hours waiting on someone to take care of you. It's quick and easy, and I bring my kids, and my kids love being here too. They really love the treasure box. Staff is really nice and accommodating, real friendly. You feel more like home. It's not sterile looking. Everybody has their own personalized rooms with decorations and decor, and they'll even have a blanket for you when it's cold. I've recommended people to actually come here, and they are patients now. I really love it here. It feels like family.
Learn more, stonewood-dental.com.
How did Edward Jones become one of the biggest financial service companies in the world? By not acting that way. Financial strategies, one-on-one advice, it's a big difference. And that's why Brad Wilson, your Edward Jones financial advisor, makes sense of investing. Experience the difference for yourself. Brad Wilson, 250 Sharon Drive in Woodway, 254-776-4337. Edward Jones, member SIPC.
Welcome back to Sikkim 365 Radio.
Single coverage, end zone, shape, and it is caught for a touchdown! Tyquan Thornton with Christian Holmes all over.
The 5 o'clock hour is brought to you by Edward Jones and financial advisor Cam Heathcott. Edward Jones, making sense of investing.
Had a question.
Now here's David Smoak, Paul Catalina, and Craig Smoak.
Question, text line, and also the chat room. How long is that Pac-12 Big Ten Rose Bowl contract? I believe it's through 2026 as part of the agreement. And you wonder, because the granddaddy of them all, which will always be a major part of college football, and at times they themselves are kind of like looking down at everybody else and trying to we're not doing that. You wonder, with USC and UCLA no longer a part of the Pac-12, how that affects the Rose Bowl. It might just become a major part of what is the larger, more expanded college playoffs as well, and they're going to host somebody. But that does change things, you would think.
Yeah, well, it is time that college football started telling the Rose Bowl, you don't get to tell us what to do anymore.
Yep.
I mean, it's long past
You
time.
think like it
Overdue.
Like overdue.
Way
It's
overdue.
way overdue for them to say, like, look, you are one of several bowl games that are important, that are really big. Do you want to continue to do that, or do you not? Because if you think your stupid little parade and 6-year-olds dancing is as important as all the money that we have, then you can just, there's many major cities they could plop in another stadium in LA and SoFi and call it the SoCal Bowl and get more people. So
for our new West Coast fans watching, Paul hates parades, so that's where the anger and vitriol for the Rose Bowl parade in particular comes from. I'm just saying the importance of it, because it's got a great sunset, has been long, I think, played out. I think it's still a great venue. I think it's a great game, great setting, all that. But like the treating of it is like the granddaddy of them all and all of that. No, I don't still stay on board with that. And I think that's more of a media thing as much as anything at this point. So, yeah, I am very curious to answer the question about what does happen with that, because so much of that was tied into what is now no longer, what's what in the Pac-12 and in the Big Ten. Those conferences are in much different places today than they were just last night. So it'll be fascinating to see what happens with that. I mean, there's so many moving parts to this and so many different things stemming from this that just, you could get enough just off of USC and UC. Like, we hadn't even, like, guys, if you think about it, we hadn't even talked about those schools going to the Big Ten, really. Like, we hadn't really talked, what does this mean for USC? We hadn't talked about that at all. What does this mean for UCLA? Like, how about the fact that it's UCLA that's going with them? It's not Oregon or Washington or whoever else. It's the 2 LA schools.
It's part of the California system, too, and you wonder about what Cal thinks about that.
So
but they
I don't know about all that. I don't know the details of how all that even works or how that's set up or anything. So I'm not going to go too far on that. But you're right. Yeah, I mean, there's all sorts of ramifications that we aren't even aware of or that have remained to be seen. But it's just this move itself. I mean, freaking USC is just packing up and going to the Big Ten. They're going to be in a conference with Michigan and Ohio State and Penn State. And, I mean, the Big Ten's now going to go from basically the Midwest and the North and from New York to L.A. They're going from New York to L.A. They got Rutgers. I mean, they're,
I saw one of the comments from, I believe, somebody in Fox, and I can't wait for that heated rivalry between USC and Rutgers.
Yeah, which they clearly don't care because, I mean, not many people do care about that potential rivalry. But, I'm sure there's some marketing behind it that'll make it make sense when the time comes. But, I mean, there's a lot of parts of it just the move itself, much less how does it affect the entire future of one conference, thus affecting the futures of every other conference, thus affecting the future of college football as we know it. So, yeah, I mean, this is a move, much like Oklahoma and Texas, that can be unpacked in 100 different ways, and you could do 100 different shows on just everything that this entails.
All right, here's an interesting text from the 213, and something we also haven't talked about. The shoe that dropped was the ACC commissioner killing the CFP expansion. When he stonewalled that, all hell broke loose to kill the NCAA and move forward with 2 super conferences. That blew the lid off. That's when the SEC and Big Ten got on the phone with each other and said, let's do this. And, I mean, that's a hypothetical, but it did certainly, if the alliance never existed, if the Big Ten did not use the ACC and Pac-12 to do its dirty work, because that's what they did, to stall the playoff probably gets through because the Big Ten doesn't want to be the bad guy and because Jim Delaney made them the bad guy on the playoff for a very long time. They don't want to be the bad guy. They can have the Pac-12 and ACC say, well, we're going to vote against it too. We're in this voting block and there's too much to do. Well, guess what? You just kind of played right into their hands.
By the way, it's a great text from Dolfo. Traditions long gone in college football. Yeah, we've started to see that really since the Big 12 broke up the first time with Nebraska leaving the conference. And even when they started in 96, when that rivalry was not every single year. We will have Sam Siegelman on 3sports.com here in a moment. He's covering Elite 11, the quarterback competition in Oregon, and check in on how that's going, including Austin Novosad, among others. Novosad is a Baylor commit as well. We appreciate all of you right now, just over 1,300 of you who are watching us on YouTube. Ryan Abraham, who will join us at 5:30 from InsideTroy.com. He put up a Twitter poll 4 hours ago, 2,100 votes Do you want to see USC leave the Pac-12 for the Big Ten? What do you think the percentage of? What do you think it is? How many people do you think said they want to leave?
I have no idea, honestly. I don't know the feelings of people out there.
I don't either.
I have no idea.
54 to 46% is the break out of 2,150 votes. That's pretty tight. They would not call that race. Yes, that they do want to leave leave the Pac-12 for the Big Ten.
Hey, when you try to send me another more housekeeping, when you try to send me Sam Spiegelman's number, it just came out as a name and not the actual contact.
Okay.
So
I'll get that to you. For the 254, should the Big 12 be concerned about? Oh my God, I just lost you. From the 254, should the Big 12 be concerned about being rated by the Big Ten, such as Iowa State, Kansas, and perhaps West Virginia and the ACC? My answer to that is I don't know, but I would doubt that. I think they're looking for, with all due respect, I think the Big Ten's looking a lot further west than other schools.
I think the Kansas thing has been a dream of Kansas fans for what's going on a very long time now, and I've seen it a million times, and I've seen absolutely nothing to suggest that move is in the works or has been in the works. Now, if it is, and it's top secret like USC and UCLA moving to the Big Ten was, or like Texas and Oklahoma was, then I'll come on this show and I'll give Kansas full credit for being so devious in the best type of way to position themselves as best as they possibly can. But that, to me, has long screamed more Twitter pipe dream than anything else. And if you're the Big Ten and you're going out and you're grabbing the likes of USC and UCLA, I just have a hard time believing that Iowa State is what's really going to work you up and get you into the next phase when, you could potentially get into the state of Texas before worrying about the other part of Iowa that you don't already have having the Hawkeyes. So, no, I'm not really all that worried about that.
All right, we'll have Sam Spiegelman here in just a second on the Elite 11.
But never say never. Who knows?
Yeah, after if something was to pop tomorrow, I wouldn't be surprised by it. I really wouldn't be surprised by it. Let's see. Okay. Last text. Every school not in the Big Ten or the SEC is on the table. This is from Vernon Buddy. Basically looking at those schools as available. It's a good point. That's a pretty good point. Whether that's true or not, but a very, very good point. And Will Richards, keep Ohio State out of Texas at all costs. Will, they're in here, man. They're in. They're locked in, and they're going to get their 3 to 5 really good recruits, like you just, Craig, mentioned the young man that was committed to Texas Tech. Their wide receiving core, was built from the state of Texas. Not that that's the only place where they've gotten that kind of talent as well. Let's see here. I see some of you bringing up some of the schools that are not known for their football success in the SEC or the Big Ten as being those that might be left out when others. The one thing, and we've said this 1,000 times, and I do think it's why the SEC ended up being the one that just never had to worry. They understand that their weakest link has to be strong, and they will protect them. And we can sit there and think about Vanderbilt or Mississippi State or whoever it might be. They have been a conference that has protected their own.
Well, also, I don't know the legal ramifications of, I know of, trying to pull somebody out, but trying to push somebody out for no reason other than you bore me, I don't think would work.
How much is that academic? Well, I guess that doesn't matter anymore. Never mind.
Well, the academic part of it, because they get big grant money, is a big part to these conferences.
No, I'm told academics don't matter anymore.
Well, they certainly do when it comes to getting that grant money, because that's where the schools make more money on academics than they do on athletics.
I think the SEC makes more academic money off of Vanderbilt or Mississippi State.
Vanderbilt.
Yeah, clearly.
There you go.
Vanderbilt or anybody in that conference, basically. Yeah, it's Vanderbilt. So they have a place. It's not a place that's, win a bunch of championships, but they did just play, not long ago for a baseball championship. And, it's not football success necessarily, but it's success in other areas. So to be as well-rounded as you want to be, Vanderbilt is a good school to have. But, yeah, I don't know that you're going to be seeing, kicking out, Big Ten saying, sorry, Rutgers, see ya. I mean, especially not now because they're going to be coast to coast. But, yeah, it's going to be interesting to see, again, where it stops. How many is enough to feed the beast of the SEC and the Big Ten where they're done poaching. Do you have to be concerned if you're the Big 12 that there's a couple schools that, maybe are in the eyes of the Big Ten because they want to expand that footprint a little bit more. The SEC, I don't know who good candidates would be. I don't think they just do it just for the sake of doing it, because the teams moving around aren't teams that are just your whatever states. It's USC, and I think, UCLA football-wise, I don't think of them with the rest of this group, but, just in total, USC, UCLA, Oklahoma, and Texas. Those are the schools moving. It's not San Diego. I mean, eventually it leads to other schools moving as well, but as far as tipping to the SEC or to the Big Ten, we have yet to see Kansas State, or TCU, or no, it's the big brands that are the ones that are, moving at the top. So I think it remains that way, but to how much of that way, I don't know. Nobody knows right now, other than, obviously the Big Ten and SEC officials who have been plotting stuff for well over a year at the very least.
Stephen Cranston, last part of the chat, and then we go to our guest, Sam Spiegelman, Oregon fan. For the best interest of our school, I hope we end up in the Big Ten. But if you set money aside, I'd love for us to be a part or see us in the Big 12. Stephen, thank you for your chat and all the others that we have going right now. Sam Spiegelman on 3.com covers recruiting. Is at the Elite 11. We've mentioned Novosad and many others as well. Sam, thanks for your time. I know it's busy as heck. What has this USC UCLA story, especially since there's a USC quarterback out there, has it been top of mind other than the competition today?
Honestly, we got the news and we had already kicked off this morning. I actually had a chance to catch up with Malachi, who said he has never once heard of, USC being rumored to the Big Ten. It was never brought up in a recruiting pitch. Obviously, we know how Malachi Nelson ended up at USC. It's a very easy story. I don't know if the conference did anything. It doesn't sound like he had any knowledge of it or preconception that it was even on the way. But certainly he's looking forward to it. I mean, seems like it's just it's a normal thing with the times these days. So he was kind of open and then willing to hear more. He had found out basically like the rest of us there.
Sam, how did you see everything shaking out at the Elite 11 today? Because again, you haven't been on this. Austin Novosad, how did he do? Jackson Arnold obviously was the overall MVP. What were your breakdowns from this?
Yeah, I thought obviously Jackson was among the top performers, and the same goes for Austin Novosad. I think the top performer at Elite 11 is always, it's subjective. I know that, On Three is calculating their numbers, and Sports Illustrated and all the media entities, and but from basically my eyes, I don't do any scoring. Jackson and Austin, two of the top guys, both from Texas. I thought Austin was really sharp the first 2 days, and he was pretty good today. But Austin, I think, really during the pro day kind of showed what he was all about. First of all, he showed up here a lot thicker than the last time I saw him in January in San Antonio. He's always had a pretty ball. That's never changed. But what we saw was a little bit more, quicker decision making, quicker channeling upstairs to deliver and strike over the middle, short and intermediate. To put a little gusto on his fastball, and that's something I think he's going to have a really good senior season. It seems like he's been developing and kind of taking strides with his game, and I think he's really established himself as one of the. I don't know if he's those guys that are top 10, 20, 50 in the country, but he's certainly in that top 150 to 300 range for sure. He's got all the tools to be a real playmaker, and he keeps getting better, so he might continue to develop and ascend. And with Jackson Arnold, I mean, he was sharp from start to finish. One of the top performers during the pro day, which is always one of the pivotal moments. And then I got to watch him during the target contest this morning, and he kind of just shows off how he's got great footwork and able to throw well on the move and so accurate. He never kind of loses his touch. And I think he showed that again in the 7-on-7 portion, just showing off that deep ball, which we see so much at Denton Guyer. It's a big part of Denton Guyer's passing game, and he executes it so well. It just looks so natural coming out of Jackson's hands.
Sam, the quarterback that's been talked about the most is one that's not even competing there. I mean, as far as talked about over the last week, and Arch Manning. Can you describe for those out there, because there's a lot of people, he's not even at Elite 11. Can you describe how Elite 11 comes to be and why some guys might not be there versus those who are?
Yeah, the Elite 11, it's a camp circuit, just like, any camp circuit. And, for Arch's focus is team first and school first. And, he's never participated in camps. He's never going to participate in camps. People have tried to get him to come out, and on Wednesday he was throwing 7-on-7 at Isidore Newman uptown in New Orleans, and he's getting better with his team to try to make a state title run. And he's just not into the individualistic awards or accolades, and he's rather focused on his team. His decisions out of his way. He doesn't, he's not really worried about being number one in the country or wherever he is ranked. So, the threat of going out there to justify a ranking or anything has never, I don't think, crossed his mind.
Another quarterback that was talked about a lot this week for other reasons was Jaden Rashada, but he was out there competing. What did you see from the new Miami commit?
Jaden had a kind of an up and down week. I can't help but imagine that the month that he's just had played a little bit of a role. He took 3 official visits to open June, and then he obviously ultimately officially visited Miami and then committed there soon after. In between, he's extended his commitment date, and 2 major national recruiting events have occurred in the last month with the OT7 in Vegas, as well as Elite 11 here in Redondo Beach. So between that and making arguably the biggest decision at least of his life so far, Jaden has also had to deal with the recruiting media, and I think it maybe has petered into his play a little bit. I've seen Jaden play a couple of times this offseason. It comes out of his arm really well. I mean, he's got a sexy deep ball. It's the only way to put it. He makes it look really natural when things are going good. When he's in a rhythm, it comes out well, and he can put it anywhere in the field and make it look pretty effortless. This week he was a little bit up and down. His accuracy was definitely off. He had a couple of moments, a couple of really good balls here and there, but for the most part, it wasn't the same kind of quarterback that I had seen as a top performer at events a little bit earlier in the offseason this spring.
Can you try, Sam, and again, we appreciate your time since everything's been going on. You've been busy and all the reporting you're doing. What is really the difference from what Jackson Arnold did to what Novosad did to Malachi Nelson or anybody else, Rashada? Is it like a thin paper line of how the talent separates itself?
If I'm being honest, in this particular class, you're looking at the top 5 or 6, depending on who you are and your subjectiveness or lack of, I think there's 5 or 6 just elite quarterbacks in the country, and a good chunk of them were there. And then, with the fact that it was excluding Arch Manning and Nico Iamaleava, those are guys that, are in the same, I would say, stratosphere. I think there's certainly an elite stratosphere. I think there's a really, really intriguing stratosphere, with guys like Novosad. He might not be the best, one of the best 5 in the country, but heck, he's maybe a top 10 guy, and he's someone that, like I said, keeps getting better. So I think, ultimately, Jackson Arnold is certainly worthy of being the MVP. I think that a guy like J.J. Cole is also worthy of being the MVP. Maybe he won the pro day, and then he was excellent during the 7-on-7 today, and I think he only had 4 incompletions and 6 touchdowns or something just that you just don't hear every day, and then you roll your eyebrows at it, like, what did I just hear? At the same time, Malachi Nelson, I thought he might have had one of the better pro days. Ricky Collins, who's committed to Purdue, was excellent during his pro day, and I put a lot of emphasis on that. So, the Elite 11 it balances the different contests. So yeah, I think there's stratospheres. But in all essence, you can look at a quarterback and you can watch his body of work and you can watch his film, of course, and you can kind of know whether they're an elite guy, a really good guy, or someone who's intriguing, or if they're maybe a notch below that.
Glad you mentioned J.J. Cole. I know Iowa State fans would like to hear about him, so good to hear that he was doing well at the same time. But he has stood out this week.
J.J. Cole was absolutely phenomenal. Like I said, I think he had 4 incompletions, and I think he had 6 drives on the 7-on-7 and scored every single time. He's a big guy. He's 6'6". He kind of looks like that traditional kind of quarterback that we're used to with the Peyton Mannings of the world, the Josh Allens of the world, where they're, the physical, impressing, but he threw with great touch. He can rifle it in. He can put it anywhere in the field. He steps up into his throws and he can launch it. He might have had the strongest arm there. That's certainly up in the possibility. I would say, my first time watching him, certainly one of the top performers, if not the top performer. If you're going to offer a criticism, I would say he's maybe not as quick as a processor as someone like a Christopher Vezina or even like an Austin Novosad or Jackson Arnold, one of some of those guys. But that's something that just comes with time and experience. And, for quarterbacks, like any, position, sometimes just the light turns on or you develop at a different rate. So, J.J. Cole is someone I'd take a chance on, 10 times out of 10.
Sam, thank you. I appreciate your time and jumping on with us after what the great camp, the Elite 11. Thanks for your time. Austin Novosad did well, and Arnold did well, and he mentioned all the others. Appreciate it and his reporting with us from Oregon on Sikkim 365 Radio, 365 Sports.
From Redondo Beach, and I was going to mention that as well. I was under the impression it had been in Oregon, but no, it's in Redondo Beach, so glad that got a chance to correct that.
And not to knock the beautiful state of Oregon, but that might be a little bit of an upgrade.
Oregon's pretty nice.
Yeah.
I mean,
hey, the live golf tournament's up there.
Yeah. But yeah, Redondo Beach, I would take that as well.
All right, wherever it was, it's a great, it's a really neat deal. And like, just because you're in the Elite 11, that doesn't mean there are other quarterbacks that aren't as deserving. But as he mentioned, the decision that was made as well by others, including Arch Manning. When we come back, Ryan Abraham, InsideTroy.com. He is covering USC. We've had him on many times before, including when the rumors of Lincoln Riley, which happened quickly, and the signing, and after post-spring drills. We'll have him on next to talk about what it has been like for someone that covers Southern Cal, and what does it mean? Sikkim 365 Radio and 365 Sports.
Allen Samuels is having the July 4th sales event on the award-winning new 2022 Ram 1500 Quad Cab Lone Star with no payments for 90 days. The special value is up to $7,000 or get $4,000 bonus cash and 2.9% for 72 months. Ram trucks are designed to be durable, functional, and stylish. This legendary truck gives you that first-class feel. Allen Samuels in Waco, the place to shop Ram trucks. First responders get $500 extra cash.
Come by. Let's be friends.
At Ideal MRI, we feel blessed to be part of the Waco community. We're a small family business here in Central Texas. At times like this, the cost of healthcare has never been more important. And unfortunately, significant illnesses and injuries still occur. And that's why Ideal MRI is open and here to serve you through this difficult time. So if you need an MRI, ask your doctor about Ideal MRI. You can schedule online in minutes at idealmri.com or call 833-IDEAL-MRI.
Did you know that 1 out of every 4 men have symptomatic low levels of testosterone and don't even know it? And if you think you're too young to worry about it, guess again. Low T levels can make you feel tired and grumpy, cause weight gain, and wreak havoc on your sexual desire and performance. Petty Clinic Low T can set up same-day blood screening and results, so if you're tired of being tired, I challenge you to man up and Google search Low T Waco or go online pettycliniclowt.com. It's a private clinic with an atmosphere catering to men. Affordable, only $150 a month, includes lab work, office consultation, testosterone injections, follow-up visits compared to $395 a month in Dallas or Austin, and you don't have to fight the traffic. Petty Clinic Low T as board-certified physician consultations will provide the best form of brand-strength testosterone available. Contact Petty Clinic Low T today, just off Highway 84 and Old Hewitt Drive in Woodway. Petty Clinic Low T, helping men become the high-performance men they deserve to be. PettyClinicLowT.com or Google search Low T Waco.
Let Camille Johnson Realtors guide you seamlessly through the process of buying your dream home or selling your current one. Commercial, farm and ranch, or residential, Camille Johnson Realtors can smoothly and successfully lead you through any transaction. With a team of 28 experienced agents who are excited about serving you, Camille Johnson Realtors services the entire greater Waco area. If you're in the market to buy or sell, contact Camille Johnson Realtors, 104 Midway Center in Woodway, or find them online at www.camillejohnson.com. Camille Johnson Realtors, elegant, charming, warm. Welcome home.
Baylor Scott and White Southwest Sports Medicine and Orthopedics, the team physicians for Baylor Athletics, diagnosing and treating all sports-related injuries, including concussions. These specialists also provide orthopedic services for athletes and non-athletes alike, whether it's knee or shoulder pain, hand or wrist injuries, orthopedic spine care, and even an arthritis and total joint clinic. Trust the doctors Baylor Athletics trusts. Baylor Scott and White Southwest Sports Medicine and Orthopedics wants to get you back in the game.
With so many companies and policies out there, it gets so confusing shopping for insurance, and I never know if I'm getting the policy that's right for me. Luckily, I met the team at the Niche Group Insurance Agency. With the Niche Group, you can go to one company and get access to coverage options from many insurance carriers, and you get to speak to a real person about your specific coverage needs. With the Niche Group, I know I'm getting the right coverage at the right price. If you need insurance, talk to the experts at the Niche Group at 1-800-258-8302.
Welcome back to Sikkim 365 Radio. Are you a Sikkim 365 super fan? Then try out our premium subscriptions at Sikkim365.com.
Ryan Abraham, one of the first people I thought about when the news on USC and UCLA and the Big Ten hit was him. I texted him. He said, check back with me. He's nice enough to join us. InsideTroy.com joins us on this day in college athletics we'll remember for a long time. Ryan, thanks for your time. What's been the feedback from Southern Cal fans?
You know, that's a funny question because I assumed it was going to be all positive. And I put a Twitter poll out soon afterwards, and it's about 55% positive and 45% negative. I had some USC super fans reach out to me saying that they don't like it because of the travel and things like that. But I don't think they're grasping the big picture of how college football is changing so quickly. And there was no way, if you're USC, when you're competing for national championships, you have top 3 classes, right? I don't think they would be able to continue to do that against Alabama and Ohio State and Georgia if those conferences and those schools are, you know, if they're making 3 times as much money in TV money than USC is. And that's what looked like was going to be happening with these new TV deals coming for the SEC and the Big Ten. So I think to stay competitive, you have to make a move like this. But I don't, at least the initial reaction, the fans haven't been all that happy about it. I mean, for the most part, they're happy, but there's a lot more fans that are upset about it than I expected them to be.
Ryan, did this start last year when the first big ripple happened with Texas and Oklahoma?
I think so. I think that's a big piece of this puzzle. But I talked to Mike Bone in 2020 about this just because, USC, when Larry Scott was running the Pac-12, USC didn't have great athletic directors. Pat Hayden, they just accepted deals where USC was making as much money as Oregon State was or Colorado. And that's just, and USC's bringing all this, TV revenue and cachet to the conference. And I felt like that wasn't going to work. It wasn't going to be sustainable. But that's kind of the way Larry Scott wanted it. George Kliavkoff comes in, focuses more on making the playoffs, focuses more on your marquee programs. And I asked, Mike Bone about just what they were going to do. At the time, Larry Scott was still a commissioner. He told me everything was on the table. They could look to go independent. They could look to join another conference. So you knew they were at least going to explore it. And I thought you had to no matter what, because if you explore it, you could at least get a better deal from the Pac-12 if they know that you could potentially leave. USC wasn't going to potentially leave before. They didn't have the tough enough leadership. Now they do. And he took it another step. He didn't just explore going somewhere else. It looks like they're going somewhere else. So it's a huge move, but man, it's one I really didn't see coming.
Right. Well, Ryan, that kind of answers, I guess, part of my next question. Smokey asked you what the fans' reaction have been. What was your reaction? And when did this first kind of get on your radar? Was it this morning like everybody else, or did you have a little bit of a heads up?
No, I was at the Elite 11, quarterback finals. It's in Redondo Beach, right near where I live, covering USC has a quarterback commit there, Malachi Nelson. There's a whole bunch of top-level quarterbacks that are there, and that's what we were going to cover today. And then we get the tweet from John Wilner, who does a great job covering the Pac-12, and then just had to drop everything and run in the studio and start talking about it. But I didn't know the timing. I mean, I knew USC would explore, and I thought that things would kind of leak where, hey, USC could potentially go here, or maybe they'll go independent. And sort of leading up to the Pac-12's media, new media deal in 2024, USC would have a bigger say in that. But man, it looked like, kind of similar to a contract. The Pac-12 TV deal is up 2 years from tomorrow. So apparently, one of the reporters from CBS Sports was talking about this was the last day to inform the Pac-12 without having some sort of financial repercussions for leaving. So this seemed like a very strategic move. All the things kind of happened at once. But yeah, to have it happening today, I was completely blindsided by it. Just, covering some recruiting event, not this.
Do you think there's any way Lincoln Riley knew this was in the works when he took the job?
I don't think so. I mean, So Mike Bone has definitely, it's not like it didn't come up today. It could have, I mean, they could have like hinted at, hey, we're going to look, because they talked about, building new facilities and getting more, money that way. And that could have been something that was enticing. Hey, we could potentially even leave the Pac-12, but I don't know if they were far enough along when he was hired on.
Right.
I think the hire though does help USC because USC was 4-8 last year. They're still like the marquee reason you would want to bring in the LA schools, right? It's USC, but they were a team that's been bad. They've been bad for quite a while. But once they hired Mike Bone, once they brought in Lincoln Riley, it showed the Big Ten, hey, this program's serious about football now. So I think he certainly helped with the deal. I just don't know if I don't think he was involved, or I don't think he was really informed much earlier than, probably everyone else was.
Ryan, I know we have you just for a few minutes because you have another hit at 5:40 Central Time. Have you thought about what this means to the Rose Bowl? Is that even like a factor on anybody's radar?
No, it is. I've heard people talk about it, and a lot of USC fans that were upset about it mentioned the Rose Bowl because it's a great tradition. Like USC's won 25 Rose Bowls, more than any other program's even gone to. They're a big part of the Rose Bowl and the tradition, and the Pac-12 and the Big Ten. But I think you're going to go to the Big Ten. You could still go to the Rose Bowl, and the Rose Bowl's changing. I mean, college football's changing. When the playoff comes, I know the Rose Bowl traditionalists are hanging on to that as much as they can. And I think you could still make it an amazing game, but it's just going to be different than what it was before. When you have the most prominent team that's, the team that's gone to the Rose Bowl the most, moving conferences, it's definitely going to change the landscape, of that game. And UCLA plays in the Rose Bowl for their home game. So there's certainly a lot of ties there, but I don't think, at any bowl game, I think the Rose Bowl can kind of stand up to the new landscape of college football, but they're going to have to embrace some changes that I think they've been reluctant to accept. And the date might change. The conference affiliations might change. I think a lot of that stuff is going to change because USC and UCLA are leaving the Pac-12.
Can the Pac-12 keep this thing together, or is it just now paddling the boat until everybody decides where they want to go?
Yeah, it's a great question. So I think if you look at, I talked to people, national writers and stuff about this. I think USC and UCLA, if you compare them to Texas and Oklahoma, the overall cachet and national brand awareness, you got to give the edge to Texas and Oklahoma just because UCLA is just not as strong as a USC is. But I think it's more devastating in the Pac-12 to lose USC and UCLA than Texas and Oklahoma for the Big 12. It's like 2 torpedoes in your side for the Big 12. There's probably like 4 torpedoes in your side for the Pac-12. You're trying to put a bullet hole in a Band-Aid here. I don't know what George Kliavkoff can do. Who, by the way, 1 year on the job as of tomorrow. What an anniversary present for this one. If anyone can put it together, I really like what he's been doing. But Larry Scott just kind of put him in a really tough spot. So I don't know if they're going to be able to keep it together. The Big 12 already got the best group of 5 teams that were available out there. If you bring in Boise State and San Diego State and Fresno State, what does that really do? I think Oregon's going to be chomping at the bit to leave. And they're going to be next up. There's potential for Utah, for Washington, for Colorado. So I think it's going to be really tough for Larry Scott to keep this together. If anyone can, it's him, but he was just put in a really tough spot.
Do you think that there's already, well, I guess, everybody's just wondering kind of the same things, but do you think there's other Pac-12 teams that are negotiating potentially with the Big Ten right now that this thing's not quite done, or do you think that it's going to be, the LA schools and that's kind of what they're good with?
From some of the reports I saw, it sounds like there's still, more Pac-12 schools on the radar there. I think Oregon, you would be silly to not.
Sure.
And it's a great brand, and Oregon's got to be extremely upset that UCLA left before they would. And I talked about this when the Texas-Oklahoma news broke, and I said, hey, if someone poaches the Pac-12, there's no scenario that USC wouldn't be involved in. But every other school could be left out. And Oregon fans got on me. They're like, there's no way Oregon be left out. They might not be, but there was definitely a scenario where it was a package deal with USC and UCLA, and they move on and then just take those 2 schools. And that looked like what's happening. They're probably in the best spot because if they put the notice in today, they'll have less financial, I guess there wouldn't be any kind of financial penalty to leave when the TV deal's up in 2024. So Oregon can still do it, but it might be a little more painful for them too. But they're going to be a desirable, they're a desirable brand that people would want in their conference. So I think the SEC started this war with the Texas-Oklahoma thing, and now the Big Ten's, firing their shot. And I just think it's a matter of time before like the schools like Oregon and Washington kind of come along for the ride somewhere, or the Big 12 and the Pac-12 merge together, something like that. There's got to be something big. This can't be a standalone event.
If they lose any more other than UCLA and USC, Paul brought this up, if they lose a couple, I mean, do you feel like then they're crippled?
Done. Like, because, I mean, you have programs like Stanford that I don't even know if they want to play this game. Like, they might bow out and say, we're not doing NIL. I know we went to a bunch of Rose Bowls and we had like top 5 teams for years, Jim Harbaugh and early David Shaw, but this doesn't seem like a Stanford thing. Like, Stanford does their way. The way college football is going, I think they could opt out of this. And, the Oregon States of the world, the Washington States, like, what are you going to do? They're going to be Mountain West teams. So if like an Oregon and Washington leave, there's nothing really left to save. And it's going to be kind of like every man for themselves, kind of figure out what the best, landing spot is. And it could be a boom for the Mountain West. They'd probably get a lot of good programs for the Pac-12.
Ryan, I don't know when I'll get to ask this again, so I got to reuse a question I asked earlier, but what was your favorite memory from the Alliance?
I mean, I think when the questions were asked about what kind of contract was signed, and they were just said, it's a handshake deal.
Yeah.
So this has a very similar feel to when the SEC sort of stabbed the Big 12 in the back and Bob Bowlesley when they were negotiating the playoff, and then steals their 2 best programs. Same sort of thing. Like, Kevin Warren over at the Big Ten. Yeah, we'll have a deal with you, but we're going to do what's best for us. I think there was some hope that because they made an alliance that the Big Ten wouldn't come calling and poach the Pac-12 schools, but I never thought that was like a realistic thing. I don't know what happened this quickly, but that's probably my favorite thing. Oh, there's nothing in writing. Just a handshake deal. Like, yeah, that went away quickly.
Crazy.
Ryan,
Crazy.
Thank you very much on this wild day that we experienced about 11 months ago and you experienced today. Thanks for your time. I know you've been crazy. At Inside Troy on Twitter, USCFootball.com. He does a great job with the Trojans. Chris Vanini, this is a fun and yet very realistic. College football as we knew it was fun. Pour one out. Definitely feels like we're on our way to a Fox conference and ESPN conference.
Yeah, I mean, there's got to be some more cleared up, not even just with the Big Ten and who they might take, because I don't think that there's just enough for those two to just fully float the boat. Or otherwise, the ACC and the Big 12 can merge and they can be the real college football and still care about academics and care about that. What happens with March Madness?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I know that's a separate thing and all that, but we're talking about the death of the NCAA, and now you got this movement. I'm just saying, like, I know that's like the least of the concerns right now, but you just have to wonder about its status the more things are shifting around.
I just wonder.
And if there's 2 mega conferences that claim to be the AFC, NFC, then they would have, in theory, their own basketball tournament.
Theory in their own basketball tournament, not only that, but how much
networks do that?
How much do you want to? Yeah. Well, yeah, but how much
they would go from the 317?
Well, no, I don't see, and that's where it gets interesting. Which is why I don't know if it'll happen, because you think about it this way: at what point do you say, "Look, you don't want to give us football money? Fine, do your own basketball tournament and see how that works out for you."
Right.
Because you're going to make more money on football, but are you going to do that to offset the amount of money that you make on the NCAA basketball tournament, which is actually the number one moneymaker for the whole of college athletics? No, you're not going to do that. So there's got to be some pushback here. Like, look, there's it feels like the college football gods are grabbing the big like blanket and shaking it, and whoever holds on. And when that happens, it happens, and we'll figure it out. But there are some things that have to be done to push back, and the basketball tournament is certainly something that has to be thought about, because if you are say you're a Washington State and Oregon State and you wind up in the Mountain West, and you've got all these things like, and the Big 12 and the ACC, who are the 2 of the 3 best basketball conferences, get pushed to the side in football. Do you not throw around a little bit of your basketball weight and say, okay, listen, when we renegotiate this thing again, you don't want us in your football world, well, we don't want you in our basketball world.
Yeah, I mean, there's that, and I just think too, with everybody saying or not everybody, you got to be careful with that social media stuff too, of just people talking. But I have seen it on social media, and I've seen other people talk about the AFC NFC whole premise. I mean, you're just going to leave like 50 schools that have all been relevant and won conference titles and been successful. You're just going to they just don't matter all of a sudden just because these two have decided that they're going to break off and branch out? I don't think so. I think there's plenty of people that still care about Baylor and TCU and Oregon State and Wazoo and, a bunch of other schools. Yeah, certainly some of them might drop down. That was the fear with the Big 12 was I remember all of the jokes, probably from a lot of Pac-12 fans actually. Enjoy the American Conference, glorified American Conference. Boy, it's weird what happens when time goes by. But, yeah, I mean, there's going to be all these schools left over. So, and I know the Big 12 for 1 second with the likes of Mac Rhodes, they're not going to just sit there and go, well, we'll take our places, the second tier, and we're just not going to be as good as these. No, hell no, they're not going to do that. So there's going to be a response of some sort, like not a response that can match the team for team, SEC or Big Ten slate, but there's more than enough interesting schools and regions and everything else and players. Like, with all the players just going to end up at these 32 schools or whatever? Of course not. There's more guys and gals than they can just fit all those schools. So, yeah, it's fascinating. And like I said, this is like an onion that, has never-ending layers to it, because you could have a whole show just on simply the future of the Big Ten. You could have one just on the future of the SEC. You could have the future on just those two in super conferences. You could have one just on the death of the Pac-12 potentially. You could have one on the Big 12's last year and the next year.
Championship. Yeah,
March Madness, NIL. It's crazy. It's absolutely insane.
There's no way. First of all, there is a way, but the men's basketball tournament is a powerful, as you mentioned, Paul. It's gonna survive. It's just a matter of what's it going to be like. And you wonder why can't all the conferences just remain the same and just in football terms, it's different.
Yeah, it is. And look,
why? Why could they ever do that? I mean, somebody
just do football only, super conferences.
Yeah, you'll do your thing in football, but we're still going to keep what we have when it comes to basketball.
They'd only be able to do that if you're pushing to the corner, because why would you? If you have that negotiating power, you don't want to lose it unless it's completely taken away from you.
I mean, I do wonder though about USC baseball going to go to Wisconsin on a Wednesday.
Yeah.
And then come back. I mean, like the travel part of this, I mean, I know it's a smaller world than ever in so many ways, but I mean, it does make you wonder. And I mean, the employment part of this, that was touched on a little bit earlier with Dan Lust, and we kind of mentioned it there, but that's another full show that you could do that's just simply based off of the news today and the news from last summer. So, yeah, man, I don't know. I mean, there are so many questions and so many different scenarios and so many things that we have no idea about yet. Like, who else does the Big Ten want potentially? I see a John Wilner tweet who's as locked in the Pac-12 as anybody, and he had, a quote from, I guess it was an unnamed source or so, talking about, they're at this amount now with USC and UCLA. That deal could be done as soon as tonight. Should be done by tomorrow. Many people have now reported, but what's the threshold? He had a tweet about there being a certain threshold that you would have to almost be a USC, UCLA type of brand. Well, that leaves what? Maybe Oregon and Washington, if that, even really, if you're talking about USC level brand. But as far as close to that, them only. So if there's this threshold, then, who else are they maybe looking at that's not the Pac-12? Who's maybe who maybe staying pat and they're fine with where they are. And how does that, I mean, I don't know. There's a billion questions, like I said, and it's all fascinating. And the thing that's weird about it is, like, I'm not an agent of chaos where I just love for everything to be chaotic just because I, just love seeing the world burn or anything like that. This is fascinating being able to be on the other side of it versus last summer, though, where we were the people going, holy crap, what happens to Baylor and their entire future, or TCU or all of these other schools? And now they're asking that out on the West Coast. And, I hate it as a lifelong college football fan. It's always been my favorite sport, and a big part of it was the unique parts of college football, the tradition and the rivalries and the conferences and all that, and all of that's just going away, and things change as you get older. But, I mean, this is a pretty massive change we're talking about here to this sport of college football we've seen in the last 2 years, and I just wonder if it's all for the good, or if this is going to be something we look back on in a few years and go, man, they really killed something special.
It's interesting to think about the Pac-12's history too, in that they've been as chaotic really as the Big 12 has when when it comes to membership, and they've kind of benefited from the fact that. Look, they've got the same kind of infighting that the Big 12 has when they've got, Stanford and Cal kind of calling the shots on academics, USC on that a little bit too, and what they want and don't want and how this has to be and how, like I said, Stanford has its own way. It's a completely different institution. And
I could totally see them bolting big time.
Yeah, but the Big 12, because the schools that were the malcontents or the schools that were causing the problems, or maybe not causing, but at the center of them, Texas, Oklahoma, whoever, we're all good in everything for the most part of most people's lives. You have your stretches of bad, but they're brand names. Stanford is a brand name in academics, but and it should be in athletics, but not in football, not in basketball, where people really think about them all that much. So, maybe the Pac-12 was kind of hiding behind the chaos that was going on in the Big 12, dealing with their own problems. And Larry Scott left a really big mess there, and people didn't quite understand. And so Big 12 fans can be pissed at Bob Bowlesby all they want, but he wasn't Larry Scott.
Garrett, earlier in the show, we were going to show this. It's a black and white newspaper. This was 1957. I wanted to bring that up. Our buddy Tony Altimore sent it. He's, of course, a Pac-12 historian, big USC fan as well. 1957, I believe, UCLA Trojans, Cal bolting the conference. So this is not the first time.
What does Tony think?
That was the Pacific Coast Conference, which became the odd set of the Pac-8, then the Pac-10, and what is now the Pac-12. I don't think he really gave us an opinion on that.
I talked to him earlier today. Let's see.
He's not
for those that don't know, Tony is, for those who've been following, he's the one that's contributed a lot of those great graphics as far as the realignment goes, and been heavily involved in a lot of our realignment discussions that have been going on. To all you new people, we've been talking about stuff like this for about a year now. And it's just crazy to see it actually, happening. But Tony's been a big contributor, so I was curious what he thinks.
Yeah, I talked to him earlier, but at that point, we weren't at the, it's going to happen tomorrow night, or they've already applied for membership. And he was the one who said, it's probably going to, he told me it's probably going to happen, but, it could also be a power move on their part to get a better chunk of the TV deal. But even then, when you say that, the Pac-12 TV deal will never be as good as the Big Ten TV deal. So unless you really, really wanted to and believed in the Pac-12, which the Pac-12 has given you no reason to do that if you're USC or UCLA, then why not go? Because, and again, here's the other thing. Last year, Oklahoma and Texas already did this, and they started it. So you don't even look really bad in a PR sense from it, because you can be like, look, this is just the way of the world, and we're just riding the tide.
Or you look really terrible because that did happen, and you did nothing to safeguard yourself, and you entered into a fake alliance where the dude who was a part of 1/3 of that alliance completely duped you and took 2 of your brands. I mean, I think he feels pretty much like Bowlesby did a year ago.
843 from Bobby in Myrtle Beach. What a day in college football. Again, question for you all. Possibly Big 12 approaches Pac-12 for all the schools for a super conference. Too big? As always, good show. Look forward to Baylor and West Virginia. Everything's on game. Nothing is off the table.
Yeah,
Whether it's for the Pac-12 or the Big 12 or for anyone else, including the fact that we continue to hear the Big Ten's not done and the SEC probably isn't done either.
But the Big Ten would, be at 16 teams now with those two? SEC is going to be at 16 with Oklahoma and Texas, right? How much do you get? You have a 24-team conference. I don't think that there's enough brands to fill out that they would want. Because if we're talking about SEC's taking Oklahoma and Texas, and the Big Ten's taking USC, and UCLA is definitely the fourth wheel in this thing, but they're LA, so okay, I get it. UCLA, they're not just taking anybody. How much do you grow? Look at that freaking thing right there. Geez Louise. So that's why, Oregon, Washington would make sense.
No, that's just somebody I saw on Twitter. I sent to Garrett,
Oregon and Washington, see if we can't get some credit for that person, too, because that's a good job there. But, you'd think that maybe they add some more just to give them some regionality there, although regionality is something we don't seem to care about at this point. But how high do you go? Yeah, and then what's the remaining look like? And if you're the Big 12, you could say merge with the Pac-12, but do you want all of those Pac-12 schools? I'd want Utah. I'd want Arizona and Arizona State and probably Colorado or whatever. But do I want all of them? I don't know about that. So, yeah, it's really interesting.
Those are the ones that now are looking around like that Will Smith picture in the house, and there's nobody else there, but they all are there in the same room, just like the remaining 8 in the Big 12. And there were thoughts that, oh, my God, they're going to eventually dissolve and all that. Never happened. And here we are yet again with the news today from John Wilner, the San Jose Mercury News at UCLA and USC are both.
And a key question is, do the Big 12 for all that happened made a decision that they wanted to stay together last year? Because they could have decided, all right, well, we might as well break this thing up because it's clearly not working. It'll never work and blah, blah. The Pac-12 has to make that decision. The rest of the remaining teams of the Pac, those 10 teams have to say, all right, well, is this worth it for all of us to do this?
Let's just theoretically, what if somebody just says, we're done.
Stanford.
Let's say it's Stanford or let's say it's Cal, and I'm just throwing, but let's just say it's one of them. We're done.
Pac-12's
we
done.
are not going to keep going down this arms race rabbit hole.
This is the same thing as the Big 12. What could they not have happened after Oklahoma and Texas left on paper? Because they're still around. They're still around, and for like another 2 years probably. They couldn't have anybody else bolt. So they all came together, and the 8 schools got together, and they decided, hey, we're going to work this thing out. And they had to have an incredible level of trust because, as we see, trust means nothing in college football. The Alliance is example A of that. They had to come together. Now, are all these schools going to come together and let's go grab San Diego State and Boise State and call it a day and just be the new Pac-12? I don't know that it's that simple, because if you are Stanford, where this is not really what your focus is, you might just say, this isn't worth it. Like this arms race, like we could do it if we really wanted to, but that's not our goal or our focus, because we are a college first.
Well, and they can't. Stanford can't jump in the NIL.
No, but I'm just saying, like they've got money, but I'm just saying, like their goal is not to be the blue blood college football team. They want to be the blue blood university, period, in education and all of that. So if they say they're done, then the whole house, it's like Jenga. You've already pulled a couple pieces, it's leaning a little bit, but you pull 1 or 2 more and there's no base for it.
They could easily be a major independent.
Yeah.
And do
I can see the independent route. Yeah.
They could easily do
that. Makes sense.
All right, we have a holiday weekend coming up that we will, of course, watch, monitor, and keep an eye on what's going on. But we appreciate so many of you today being in the chat room, even in the Sikkim 365 premium section, where there's a couple of threads going on right now about what this all means. There's one particular member that is very much tied into some of the schools out in the West or Mountain Time, and he's throwing out some great information that you want. You can go to the Sikkim 365 premium section on that. So USC and UCLA, what's the next little bomb to drop? We'll watch that occur when we come back. One more time today, Paul Catalina's Top 5, Sikkim 365 Radio, 365 Sports.
Baylor University is where lights shine bright. So let there be light. Let there be roommates and teammates, scholarship and championships. Let there be fresh starts and new traditions, fast friendships and lasting impacts. Let there be laughter. Let there be joy. Let there be light. Baylor University, where lights shine bright.
Payments for qualified buyers are 2.9% for 72 with 5,000 down cash or trade. TTL extra. See dealer for details. Step up your ride at Richard Carr's Summer Savings Event. Find summer savings like a 2018 GMC Sierra SLT, only $432 a month, or a 2017 Buick Encore for $183 a month, or GMC Acadia for only $280 a month. Our vehicles go through a 172-point inspection. We pay top dollar for your trade, and 100% approval is always our goal. Find your next car or truck today at Richard Carr.
At Richard Carr, we give you more.
From the first workout to the last practice, sports is an incredible and rewarding challenge. Hi, this is Dan Ingham with the First National Bank of Central Texas, and we're proud to support each athlete, every parent, and our educators. From families, small businesses, to the biggest industry, we're here to help. With remarkable products like our free First mobile app, we've got banking ideas that fuel big dreams. That's the First National Bank of Central Texas. Familiar faces making local decisions.
Member FDIC, Equal Housing Lender.
It takes time to reach goals. It's a truth that applies to more than sports. It goes for your financial goals as well. You work hard for your money, and you deserve an investment strategy that lines up with your game plan. And Tom Albers, your Edward Jones financial advisor, can help. If your financial investments aren't putting forth the effort you desire, stop by today for a financial review. Tom Albers, 4301 Lakeshore Drive, 254-776-7605. Edward Jones, member SIPC.
Stepping into the boots of a U.S. Army officer can add confidence and leadership skills to your son or daughter's career path. See all the things they can achieve in our boots at GoArmy.com. U.S. Army Waco Recruiting Company, 254-598-8131 or 254-776-1543.
In Texas, there's pea-size hail and baseball-size hail. Guess which one hit our house? We didn't even know where to begin, but we called our Texas Farm Bureau insurance agent, and he was so reassuring. He knew exactly what to do to get our house back into shape and our lives back to normal. Now, we're even more thankful for the roof over our heads.
Stop by and see our agents at one of our 3 McLennan County locations.
Coverage and discounts are subject to qualifications and policy terms and may vary by situation.
Automatic Chef Canteen is a full-service micro-market vending and office coffee provider with state-of-the-art vending equipment, a wide variety of products, and offering custom-fitted micro-market vending office coffee solutions for your employee break room. You want a full break room solution and a workplace oasis? Well, Automatic Chef Canteen, locally owned and operated for over 50 years in Central Texas, also includes in-house mechanics on call 24/7 for fast, reliable service and maintenance. Automatic Chef Canteen, 6900 Imperial Drive in Waco, or online at automaticchefcanteen.com.
This is Paul Catalina's Top 5 at 5:55.
Top 5 questions for the Pac-12, and one of these has already been answered. But when I did the top 5, it was still a possibility that this was a power move by USC. And UCLA. But number 5 is, can the league stop this move? And apparently not. They're not going to be able to. They're not going to. It's already happened. So, but I did think, I mean, at the beginning of the day, when it said it hasn't been approved at the highest levels yet, you know, one of the things when you reach out to a couple people in the Pac-12, said, well, maybe it's about getting that tiered television deal that they want that's better for them. But obviously it's about way more than that. Because again, like I said in the last segment, if the Pac-12 is going to give you more money, but still not as much as the Big Ten, then what does it matter if you could pull a power move, unless you really believed in the future of the conference, which, you know, I don't know if anybody really does.
I don't know what to think of it. Can the league stop the move? No. So that's obvious, but the question is, I don't know that they have everyone that's still there. They have to keep all of them. Remember what Ryan said? They lose anybody else, it's over.
Yeah. The answer to this question is no.
Yeah,
they cannot. We already talked about this. USC and UCLA might be official by tonight, if not tomorrow morning. So no, they can't stop this.
No, but I didn't when I wrote this.
Yeah.
It was not answered yet. Number 4, does this change how anyone else feels about long-held beliefs? Okay, if you didn't want to be in a conference with religious schools, if you need to now, you might want to change that, Cal. Or if your fan base is all in California and the only offer is from the Big 12, do you have to just go to the Big 12 Arizona schools? Like, do those things change because now you're forced up against it? You would think they almost have to, right?
I mean,
if they don't,
if you want to stay relevant in college sports, I mean, if you're Cal, you're going to have to make a choice. Do you want to maintain the level that you're at right now as best you can? Then perhaps you throw a floater out to the Big 12. But here's the thing: the Big 12 could tell you to go screw yourself. Mm-hmm. I mean, I'm not going to forget the snobby nature of some Pac-12 fans, and especially those who follow schools like Cal. We're not going to take some small Baptist school or some school out of Fort Worth. We're not going to fiddle with private schools, especially religious schools. I mean, all that's going to potentially come back and bite you right in the rear end. But then again, those people probably don't care that much that it will. So, I think that it depends on who your leadership is and what the goals of your university are. If you want to maintain your athletic standing, then you're going to probably have to make some concessions because you're certainly not in control at this point.
You should see the reaction of the chat room about Cal, and it's not positive. Yeah.
No. Okay. All right. Number 3, how does this affect your SoCal interest if you're the Pac-12? You've lost the 2 schools that are there. There's nobody you can't. The Big 12 is kind of interesting in that, you lose a gigantic brand like Texas, a gigantic brand like Oklahoma, but you still have schools that are in those places, in those states.
Yep.
And California has to be looked at like a couple of different spots. People in San Diego think there's San Diego and the rest of California. But you look at California and there's Northern California, there's Central California, there's Southern California. Well, once you're south of Berkeley, does anybody care anymore about the Pac-12?
Well, the fact that we heard from somebody out on that side of the country that whatever LA radio, I know they got multiple out there, but the one that was pointed out was talking, Kevin Durant's impending decision or whatever versus this story, UCLA and USC moving to the Big Ten, and they're talking about Kevin frickin' Durant, who plays in Brooklyn. I understand it could have an effect on California schools, but that tells you everything you need to know. There is no world that exists where if OU and Texas move, that everybody's not talking about that. Now, there might have been some station in Dallas that was talking Cowboys because that's what they do all the time, but I think that's part of the problem is that there's not enough people talking about college football, so there's going to be even less now. There was little to begin with. I guess in theory, the one thing you could do would be like, let's go grab San Diego State. And I know our Aztecs fans out there are going to be like, yes, do that. But does that save the conference and make up for those losses? No, there would have to be more added to that. And I don't know how you do that. That's the question in front of them.
Yeah. Number 2, does this stall the TV deal completely? Yeah, probably does.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
You take out the largest possible market you could have had in that TV deal in Los Angeles. And look, San Francisco's a big market and so is Seattle. But, nobody's, quite clamoring to get into, Denver's a big market, but Los Angeles is second to. Well, I don't know if it's number 1, but it's a top 3 market. You've taken away a top 3 market. Television-wise, you've taken away the big brand, the one that was supposed to save the conference with the hiring of Lincoln Riley and getting relevant again. Well, doesn't matter to the Pac-12 if USC is relevant again at all.
No, LA is the number 2 market. New York's the number 1 market. Chicago's the number 3 market.
All right.
And, this completely stalls. Do you guys realize what deal was stalled already? It was the Big Ten deal.
Yeah.
Big Ten deal has been just snail's pace, kind of just nobody look over here at how slowly this is going on and how this was supposed to already be done, but we've dragged it out for whatever reasons. Oh, now we learn those reasons today. So, again, you wonder how many people knew what, when they knew it, and just the level of that all. But, yeah, the Big Ten's TV deal was already looking like it was going to be $1 billion+. Now it's going to be even more insane. And the Pac-12, what are you even negotiating with? If you're negotiating with the Pac-12, what are they offering you without USC and UCLA that they can insure? Because you can say, well, we still got Oregon and Washington. Do you though? Do you?
No, they have to. That's going to have to be put on hold.
Yeah.
The Big Ten's footprint. This from Scott Dockerman of theathletic.com. 5 of the 7 largest metro markets. That doesn't mean they're all college towns. Most of them pro. New York, Los Angeles, Chicago, D.C., and Philadelphia.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. There's big stuff in Lincoln. No.
Watch yourself.
The TVs are powered on corn. No, number 1, who can the conference add? Should they go that way? And really, I think we just answered that question. Your choices are limited to UNLV and San Diego State, Fresno State, Boise,
Air Force.
That's.
But then all of a sudden you're basically the Mountain West and Conference USA or whatever. Yeah, that's the damnedest thing. That this time a year ago, not quite, but nearly 2 weeks to the anniversary of it, when we're at Big 12 Media Days, here in 2 weeks, we'll be doing the show from there. That will mark the 1 year from hearing about OU in Texas, which came right after Big 12 Media Days ended, which was very fitting. We get to see this actually at Pac-12 Media Days, right? Because this haven't happened yet. So, this is what would have happened if OU and Texas had announced before Big 12 Media Days last year. It'll be fascinating to see kind of what all that looks like. And I guess we need to see USC and UCLA become official either tonight or tomorrow, which is what most of the reporting is suggesting. And then after that, I guess we'll have to see some other domino drop or some indication of what they're going to try to do to salvage it, if they're going to try to salvage it. But if they do, you're pretty limited. It's San Diego State, it's Boise State, it's Air Force, it's Conference USA, it's Mountain West. That's basically what you're looking at.
And it, Paul?
Yep.
Thank you very much. This is one from the 480. I know we're well past the time. At this point, why even have conferences? Just everybody play each other. We could go on and on and on. And thank you to Jack and also Levi, Emery, and Garrett behind the scenes for taking on this roller coaster today. And the massive amount of you who are a part of our chat room, the text line, it absolutely just blew up as well. And we appreciate it. Know why? Thanks to our sponsors who are here every day with us so we can be with you as well. Have a great 4th of July weekend, everybody.
Yeah, we'll be back on, Monday?
Tuesday.
Okay, we'll be back, and I'm sure there will be a lot of things having occurred before then. Yeah.
Former Baylor coach Steve Rodriguez headed to be a part of the staff at the University of Texas. Wanted to make sure we mentioned that. Paul, Craig, David Smoak. Have a great 4th of July weekend. See you Tuesday. Sikkim 365 Radio, 365 Sports.
Ideal MRI is a small family business right here in Central Texas. We're open to support you while lowering the cost of healthcare bills. When you need an MRI, ask your doctor for an Ideal MRI.